Chapter 698. Looking at the vice domain chief who was beaten up, Lin Xian said calmly, "I'm doing this for your own good. I'm teaching you not to be too arrogant. Not everyone can be offended in this world. Fortunately, I'm good-tempered and didn't stoop to your level. Otherwise you would have been dead by now." The vice domain chief was on the verge of tears. He even wanted to die. Who's the arrogant one? The surrounding people were even more stunned and shocked. The young man in front of them was definitely a fierce person. He had subdued the arrogant vice domain chief with just a raise of his hand. Other than the governor and the vice domain chief, no one else had this ability. Lin Xian glanced around and looked at the rest of the Flying Tiger troop. Immediately they retreated in fear. What a joke. Even the vice domain chief was beaten up. Who would dare to go up? However, Lin Xian said, "Let's go. Take me to the governor's residence." What? Everyone was stunned and could not believe their ears. You heard me right. I said I'm going to the governor's residence. Then Lin Xian turned to Yu Fei and said, "Take a rest first. I'll come and find you when I'm done." Yu Fei nodded mechanically. His eyes were blank. Until now, he still could not accept what was happening in front of him. Hero, please." The rest of the Flying Tiger troop carefully opened the way, afraid that they would offend Lin Xian. They were not arresting a criminal. They were simply guards opening the way for someone. However, they were not dissatisfied at all. They only wanted to reach the governor's residence as soon as possible so that they could complete their mission. Lin Xian naturally had his reasons for going to the Chengdu residence. He did not know the people from the Flying Tiger troop at all. There must be a reason why they wanted to kill him. Moreover, not long ago he found out that the Green Wolf Gang and the Flying Tiger troop were the two branches of the Green-Red Society. There must be a connection between the two. It seemed that the Flying Tiger troop was standing up for the Green Wolf Gang this time. Moreover, Lin Xian knew that the governor of the Flying Tiger troop was a First Heaven Venerable. Although he was powerful, he was confident that he could deal with him. Therefore, he went to the governor's residence fearlessly. Lin Xian walked at a leisurely pace as if he was taking a stroll in the park. From time to time, he would look at the surrounding roadside scenery. The Flying Tiger army stood on both sides of Lin Xian as if they were his most loyal guards. The martial artists in the city were shocked, and they were all trying to guess which great figure actually needed the Flying Tiger army to open a path for them. If they knew that those people were here to capture Lin Xian, their jaws would definitely drop. Finally, Lin Xian came to a stop in front of a huge mansion. The entire mansion was very majestic, like a small city. The tall walls were incomparably black. The gate was even more magnificent. In front of it were two stone carvings of flying tigers baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. The group of people escorted Lin Xian into the city lord's mansion. On the other hand, the guards at the gate were puzzled. Didn't they say that they were going out to capture someone? Why were they escorting such a big shot back and even accompanying him so carefully? Moreover, why was there a pig head in the team? No, that outfit, what? Vice Domain Chief? Everyone was shocked. They looked at each other, not knowing what had happened. Lin Xian did not go to the main hall. Instead, he was brought to a landscape garden. There were pavilions, terraces, and pavilions in picturesque disorder. There were rockery and flying rocks. It was a work of the gods. At this moment, the city lord and many of his subordinates were enjoying the dance and drinking when a guard suddenly reported. When he learned that the person on the wanted poster had been captured, his eyes instantly shot out a terrifying light. "Bring that brat here." Soon Lin Xian strode over. Behind him was a group of Flying Tiger army soldiers. Lin Xian swaggered around with a calm demeanor, as if he was the master of this place. When Lin Xian walked to the front, he saw the fine wine and delicacies nearby. He instantly laughed loudly and sat down to drink to his heart's content. Many martial artists in the courtyard had uncertain expressions, especially City Lord Jianghu. His face was terrifyingly gloomy. This guy in front of them was too arrogant. He actually ignored all of them and ate and drank to his heart's content. Did he not know that he was a prisoner? How dare you? Arrogant. Why aren't you kneeling when you see the city lord? A young man shouted coldly. He was also wearing light armor, and his expression was cold. This young man was the son of the Flying Tiger Army's lieutenant. When he saw Lin Xian's arrogant attitude, he was instantly enraged. Lin Xian held the wine cup in his left hand and laughed loudly. "You're the bold one. How dare you speak like that? Why aren't you slapping yourself?" His voice was filled with arrogance and unruliness. "You're courting death." The young man was enraged. He immediately pulled out a sharp long sword and stabbed out quickly. No one stopped him. Everyone looked at this scene with gloomy expressions. This young man looked young, but his cultivation was at the peak of the spirit-detecting realm. His sword's momentum was shocking. The sword light was like a dazzling divine light that swept through the void. Red flames were attached to the sword chi. They were dancing, accompanied by a blazing aura. It was as if a ferocious fire dragon was spewing out. In an instant, the terrifying sword light enveloped Lin Xian. Die, brat. The young man's face was ferocious like a demon. However, in the next moment, a vigorous hand reached out and grabbed the head of the fire dragon. His 5 fingers bent and pierced through the head. With a mournful cry, the fire dragon disappeared, turning into a rain of fire that fell to the ground. Lin Xian snorted disdainfully. His gaze was like a sword that pierced forward. The young man's face turned pale. He took 3 steps back and spat out a mouthful of blood. You don't know how to use a sword, and you're not worthy of using one, Lin Xian said mercilessly. The young man clutched his chest. His eyes were spitting fire. He wanted nothing more than to burn Lin Xian to death. He was considered an elite of the younger generation in the Flying Tiger Army. His status was respected, and no one dared to speak to him like that. Now an unknown brat dared to taunt him in public. This put him on the spot. His heart was burning with anger. He wanted nothing more than to pounce forward and cut Lin Xian down. However, the terrifying scene from before left him with lingering fear. He didn't dare to move recklessly. The others were even more shocked. This young man defeated the enemy in one move. No wonder he was able to kill Steward Du. Humph, brat, you're arrogant. How dare you behave so atrociously in my territory? Aren't you afraid of death? Jianghu's voice was cold and murderous. I'm just SOSO. Third in the blood realm. Lin Xian smiled. Speak, why are you looking for me? Don't tell me you just want to enjoy my performance? Umph. Jianghu sneered. Brat, did you kill my junior brother? Your junior brother? Which one is your junior brother? Lin Xian snorted. I've killed too many people. I can't remember. Cut the crap. Did you kill Steward Du of the Green Wolf Gang? A muscular man beside him asked coldly. He was the lieutenant of the Flying Tiger Army. He looked at Lin Xian with murderous eyes. Steward Du? Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. It seemed that the Green Wolf Gang was behind this. Murderous intent rose in his heart. He had warned them not to provoke him, but they didn't listen. They even moved out of Flying Tiger City. Did they think he was so easy to bully? Since they didn't keep their promise, there was no need for them to exist. Lin Xian decided that after this matter in Flying Tiger City, he would destroy the Green Wolf Gang. I think you're mistaken. I didn't kill Steward Du, it was the leader of the Green Dragon Gang. You're full of nonsense. You're still trying to deny it. Steward Du is the right-hand man of the Green Wolf Gang. Why would the leader of the Green Dragon Gang hurt him? The lieutenant sneered. What a joke. I haven't even finished speaking and you're already jumping out. Are you trying to show off your superior intelligence? Lin Xian sneered. In my opinion, you're just an idiot. Then he said coldly, the leader of the Green Wolf Gang is obviously afraid of me. That's why he killed Steward Du, that's how it is. I don't expect you to believe me. That's enough. Didn't you call me here to kill me? Hurry up. I'm in a hurry. Chapter 699. Lin Xian's words were out of everyone's expectations. He was too arrogant and did not put them in his eyes at all. Tianhu's face was even more gloomy. As the city lord, no one had ever dared to be impudent in front of him. Little thief, do you know who you're talking to? Lieutenant Wang Yu shouted coldly. Brat, no one has ever dared to talk to me like that. Those who have been arrogant in front of me are all dead. Tianhu's voice was cold. You have guts, but you have no brains. All right, stop putting on airs as the city lord. Lin Xian laughed disdainfully. If I don't say or do anything, will you let me go? We're going to fight anyway, why should I give you face? Also, you don't have the right to be arrogant in front of me. Lin Xian's voice echoed, completely shocking everyone. Heavens, this guy was too crazy. He actually dared to mock the city lord without any scruples. Did he not know that the entire Flying Tiger City was under their control? He even said that this guy knew that he was going to die, so he wanted to go crazy before he died. Of course, everyone felt that the last possibility was very likely. You're courting death. Today, I'll let you know the consequences of behaving atrociously in the city lord's mansion. Lieutenant Wang Yu shouted angrily. He pulled out the long saber at his waist, held it with both hands and slashed down. He had wanted to make a move for a long time. This brat in front of him was too arrogant. First, he injured the vice lieutenant of the Flying Tiger Army. Then he injured his son. Now, he did not put him and the city lord in his eyes at all. Everything made Wang Yu go crazy, so he did not hesitate and slashed down with his saber. Only by cutting this hateful little thief in half could he vent the hatred in his heart. The saber flashed, like a silver river dancing in the sky. The void shook, and a fierce and terrifying aura swept out like a tsunami. With one slash, the surrounding fake mountains shattered, and the waterfall flew backward. The momentum was terrifying. Lin Xian raised his head and punched out. The golden fist enlarged in the air like a small mountain. Golden arcs of lightning flashed around it, and thunder rumbled in the air. Terrifying lightning energy permeated the air, turning everything in the surroundings into ashes. The surrounding warriors retreated in fear, distancing themselves from the two of them and retreating to a safe place. At the same time they were extremely shocked. This young man was really crazy, acting without any scruples. He actually dared to make a move in the city lord's mansion. Moreover, the terrifying power of lightning was truly terrifying. Wherever the golden fist passed, the void was almost unable to withstand it. Boom! The resplendent saber light collided with the golden fist, creating an earth-shattering sound. Then the blade light trembled and shattered like glass, dissipating in the air. At the same time Wang Yu's face turned pale as he retreated. Lin Xian's expression was calm. His fist turned into a palm and suddenly slammed down. The mountain-like golden fist in the void transformed into a golden palm that covered the sky. Thunder rained down everywhere it passed. Terrifying energy surged and created a bottomless black hole in the ground. The entire Hill Spring residences was completely destroyed. Everyone's expression changed. This palm was too terrifying. It was hard for them to imagine that this was an attack from a young man. This power definitely surpassed that of an ultimate warrior. Could this young man be a half-step honorable warrior? Everyone's hearts raced as their expressions changed. A half-step honorable warrior at this age was definitely a genius. These geniuses were usually supported by powerful forces. Some of them were not forces that Flying Tiger City could contend with. Wang Yu's expression was even more horrified. He did not expect his opponent to be so powerful that he could shatter his attack with a single punch. Looking at the rapidly descending golden palm in the void, he let out a low growl and quickly unleashed the power of his martial soul prototype. An extremely powerful force surged out and filled the surroundings. At this moment Wang Yu's body was shining brightly. Terrifying energy filled his body, and he could even tear the void apart with a single move. He waved both of his palms and struck out an energy palm shadow. It swept across the sky and resisted the golden palm above. However, the golden palm in the sky was too terrifying. It directly shattered the palm shadow that filled the sky and quickly enveloped Wang Yu. Boom! Wang Yu was sent flying and kept retreating. Every step he took left a terrifying crack in the ground. The ground of the entire feng shui garden was torn apart as if an earthquake had occurred. Wang Yu's hair was disheveled, his chest was heaving up and down, and the corners of his mouth were stained with blood. This palm had seriously injured him. On the opposite side Lin Xian looked calm. He did not even move his feet. You have the nerve to draw your saber with your little strength? You even said that you would kill me. Can you do it? Lin Xian sneered disdainfully. Wang Yu was about to go crazy. He was like a wild beast roaring continuously. A terrifying aura floated around his body like a burning flame. The spiritual energy in the sky gathered and formed an energy giant that was dozens of feet tall. Its hands were on the ground as it roared at the sky. Its voice was like a wave that slapped in all directions and shattered the clouds in the sky. The giant glared at Lin Xian and then spat out an energy beam. Air waves rolled and the void shattered. The terrifying energy beam was like a demon spear that quickly rushed toward Lin Xian. Lin Xian sneered with disdain in his eyes. Then he took a step forward, and the spiritual energy in his body condensed into a terrifying sword chi that quickly slashed forward. The sword chi was dazzling and directly bombarded the energy beam, shattering it. Then the terrifying sword chi slashed the energy giant in half. Finally, the dazzling sword chi enveloped Wang Yu. Everything happened too quickly. All they saw was Lin Xian taking a step forward. Then a huge and resplendent sword beam appeared in the sky. Wherever it passed, everything was annihilated. Nothing could stop it for even a moment. When the sword chi disappeared, everyone was shocked and gasped. That was because Wang Yu's body was cut in half and fell to the ground. His blood and organs were splattered all over the ground. It was a hideous sight. It was too terrifying. The dignified domain chief of Flying Tiger City, a half-step supremacy, was killed with a single slash. Moreover, he could not even fight back. This kind of strength was heaven-defying, and the opponent was such a young man. Countless people trembled and did not dare to look at Lin Xian directly. Looking at this scene, Tianhu's face was terrifyingly gloomy. He did not make a move in the previous battle because he felt that as a half-step supremacy, Wang Yu had an absolute advantage to kill the little thief in front of him. However, Lin Xian's strength was beyond his expectations. Wang Yu was not strong enough at all. Moreover, the last slash was so fast that Tianhu did not even have the chance to save him. Looking at the terrified expressions of the Flying Tiger City soldiers, Tianhu's face was ferocious, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. He knew that he had to kill Lin Xian to settle today's matter. "Brat, you dared to kill my people. No one can save you today." Tianhu released a terrifying aura. "I'm going to cut off your head and hang it on Flying Tiger City so that everyone will know the consequences of offending Flying Tiger City." As Tianhu walked over step by step, his aura became more and more powerful. The pressure of a supremacy was completely released, making it difficult for everyone to breathe. He was not careless at all. Judging from the battle just now, since Lin Xian could kill a half-step supremacy with a single slash, he must have reached the supremacy realm. Chapter 700. Facing Lin Xian, Tianhu did not dare to be careless. When the surrounding martial artists saw Tianhu make a move, they immediately became excited because they knew that Tianhu was a true venerable. He was extremely powerful and could be said to be the #1 expert in Flying Tiger City. Lin Xian's eyes lit up and his expression was also extremely solemn. No matter what, the other party was a true venerable, far from what Wang Yu and the others could compare to. Therefore, Lin Xian did not underestimate this battle. A golden fist condensed and Lin Xian attacked first, punching out. Golden light flickered like a sun, rampaging through the void. Everyone was shocked. They did not expect that Lin Xian would dare to take the initiative to attack in the face of a powerful venerable. Tianhu laughed sinisterly and roared, immediately releasing his martial soul. His martial soul was a fierce tiger, and it was condensing behind him at this moment, accompanied by a monstrous and terrifying power. The tiger martial soul was very intelligent. It roared towards the sky and the sound shook the sky. A strange sound wave blasted out with Tianhu's fist, forming a spiral attack in the air. The air was ruthlessly torn apart. The fist wind was vast and mighty and a gale swept out. It was like a fierce tiger attacking, swift and fierce to the extreme. The two fists collided with an earth-shaking sound, and the surrounding ground cracked and spread into the distance. Under one blow they were evenly matched. The two fists were in a stalemate in the air, devouring each other. Whoosh! The surrounding martial artists were shocked. They did not expect Lin Xian to be able to contend with the city lord. This scene made them feel fear in their hearts. Tianhu was also shocked. His attack was actually blocked, which was completely beyond his expectations. One had to know that he had used the power of his martial soul in this punch. Thinking of this, his face darkened. He had to use his full strength and not hold back anymore. Tianhu gritted his teeth, his eyes burning with anger. Then he took a step forward and merged with the tiger martial soul behind him. His originally tall and strong body grew another 3 feet like a small giant, mighty and extraordinary. His body was covered with black and white tiger stripes, flickering with light. His limbs became thick and his palms were sharp like tiger claws, flickering with cold light and incomparably sharp. His entire person seemed to have turned into a fierce tiger murderer, emitting an aura that made people's hearts tremble. Lin Xian's eyes focused. He could naturally feel the terror of the other party. Taking a deep breath, he formed a seal with his right hand and the spiritual power in his body crazily. Lin Xian had no intention of dragging things out either. He was going to go all out. "Little thief, die." Tianhu roared as he punched out with both fists. The wind from his fists was vast and mighty, forming a ferocious tiger that pounced forward. The ferocious black tiger filled up the entire space. With a swipe of its claws, it tore the void apart. Vermilion bird seal. Lin Xian snorted coldly as he formed a seal with his right hand and madly pressed it forward. "A's a vermilion bird divine beast, a divine bird, a divine bird's bird. The vermilion Tianhus have a fierce move, as well as have a shenver. What kind of bird is this? How can it be so terrifying?" "Vera vermilion bird," the someone said in a trembling voice, his eyes filled with fear. The vermilion bird soared into the sky like a sun, illuminating the 4 rooms. It let out a cry, flapped its wings and rushed down. With raging flames he charged towards the black tiger. Boom! The two beasts collided, and energy spread out like a tide. The black tiger roared, its roar shaking the sky. But the vermilion bird was too powerful. Its body was surrounded by flames, burning everything. The vermilion bird seal had an extraordinary origin. Now that Lin Xian had used the dragon sword soul, it was even more powerful. In just a moment, the vermilion bird tore the black tiger's shadow apart. Its body shook and it pounced on Jianghu. Whoosh! Jianghu's expression changed and he moved sideways. He didn't dare to face the vermilion bird head-on. But in the next moment, his expression changed again. Lin Xian appeared in front of him like a ghost. Jianghu was shocked. He kept changing his position, but he still underestimated Lin Xian. Lin Xian had an Earth-class movement technique, so his speed was terrifying. He followed closely behind Jianghu, and the vermilion bird seal in his hand fell. Boom! Another vermilion bird flew out and pounced on Jianghu. Black tiger protection. Jianghu couldn't dodge, so he could only take it head-on. Black and white tiger stripes flickered on his body, and a black tiger shadow surrounded him, forming a solid defense. The vermilion bird's shadow collided, emitting a sky-shaking sound. The terrifying power directly pushed Jianghu back. Whoosh! Lin Xian followed like a shadow, arriving behind Jianghu in an instant, and the vermilion bird seal struck out again. Originally, Jianghu was forced back, and his heart was extremely sullen. But before he could react, he suffered another blow. This time, his black tiger protection was directly shattered. The terrifying power blasted on his body, causing him to vomit blood. Jianghu was furious. He looked up to the sky and roared. The terrifying sound resounded throughout the 4 houses. However, he still couldn't escape the fate of being beaten. Another blow directly blasted him to the ground, smashing a bottomless black hole in the ground. The surrounding martial artists were stunned. Their city lord was actually being chased and beaten? This scene made them feel like they were dreaming. Lin Xian used the dragon sword soul as the foundation and struck out the vermilion bird seal. Every strike could split mountains and split rivers. Even respect couldn't withstand it. 5 strikes, a total of 5 strikes of the vermilion bird seal all landed on Jianghu's body. When the 6th strike landed, Jianghu's arms broke and his bones exploded. His body went limp and fell to the ground. Everyone was horrified because they found that all the bones in Jianghu's body were broken and his eyes were dim. It seemed that he wouldn't be able to survive. Lin Xian retracted his palm and stood in the air. He knew that the battle was over because no one could withstand 6 strikes of the vermilion bird seal. Then he looked down and pointed his finger. Jianghu fell to the ground, his body trembling. His heart was filled with fear. He never thought that he would be completely defeated by a youth, and it was a crushing defeat. He was unwilling, he roared, he struggled. However, in the next moment, a sword light pierced through him. Plop! Jianghu's body completely stopped moving. The surrounding martial artists were stunned, then they screamed in horror. Their city lord was actually killed. To them, this was even more terrifying than the sky collapsing. Countless people were terrified and wanted to escape. However, Lin Xian coldly snorted, immediately suppressing everyone. Seeing Lin Xian descend from the air, everyone trembled. However, Lin Xian ignored those martial artists and only cut off Jianghu's head. Then he put it away and disappeared into the air. After a long time, the people of the city lord's mansion heaved a sigh of relief and then sat on the ground. This terrifying scene shocked their hearts. They would probably never forget it for the rest of their lives. It's over, the sky has changed. Countless people trembled. They knew that Flying Tiger City must have fallen into a riot. After a long time, a few martial artists who had reached the half-step venerable realm were the first to recover from the horror. They whispered to each other and decided to ask the Azure Red Society for help. The city lord was dead. This kind of thing was too big. They couldn't control it at all and could only report it. Chapter 701. Jianghu's death caused a huge commotion. The powerhouses of Soaring Tiger City discussed and quickly asked for help from the Azure Red Society. However, Lin Xian didn't know any of this. He was currently rushing to Broken Mountain City. Lin Xian had let the Azure Wolf gang off because they were obedient. However, he didn't expect them to do something in secret. Lin Xian naturally wouldn't let them off this time. His body transformed into a ray of sword light as he quickly flew through the great blood-filled plains. Broken Mountain City. The old man returned after sending the corpses of Steward Du and Steward Du to Soaring Tiger City. He naturally returned to report to Zhao Kun. In the hall, Zhao Kun laughed with satisfaction when he heard the news. Haha, well done. With Jianghu's help, that thief will definitely not be able to escape. Gang leader then? The old man rubbed his hands and seemed to be hesitant to speak. Oh, I almost forgot. Zhao Kun immediately smiled when he saw the old man's expression. From today onward, you'll be the steward of the Azure Wolf Gang. Steward Li, you must work hard in the future. Yes. Gang leader. The old man was excited. I'll definitely work wholeheartedly for the Azure Wolf Gang. Good. 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 Both of them laughed loudly. They were very satisfied in their hearts. However, at this moment, the roof above the hall suddenly broke open, and countless tiles turned into ashes. Swoosh. A black shadow shot in quickly like a black bolt of lightning. What's that? Zhao Kun and Steward Du were shocked and looked up. Especially Zhao Kun, he was extremely furious. Someone actually dared to behave atrociously in his territory. They must be tired of living. However, he was stunned in the next moment. Because the black shadow fell to the ground and rolled a few times before it stabilized itself. Zhao Kun also saw the black thing clearly. It was actually a human head. It was covered in blood, and its eyes were filled with terror and despair. It was Jianghu's head. Seeing this, Zhao Kun and Manager Li both jumped up in shock. Both of them were terrified and filled with disbelief. Jianghu was the city governor of Soaring Tiger City and a venerable realm powerhouse. In Flying Tiger City, no one could compete with him. Even the experts who passed by would not dare to offend Jianghu because they were afraid of the Cyan Red Society. However, such a valiant character had actually been beheaded and even brought here. Why was Jianghu's head here? Zhao Kun was terrified, but he was also deeply puzzled. Could it be? When he saw Manager Li, he suddenly had a bad premonition. He had just sent someone to contact Jianghu, and the latter had died. Moreover, his head had been brought here. He would never believe that this had nothing to do with him. Gang leader, this has nothing to do with me. Manager Li said with a trembling voice. Could it be that brat? Manager Li exclaimed, could it be that he's here for revenge? The more they thought about it, the more likely it seemed. Trembling, they looked up. Above them, a figure was walking in the air. Around him were streaks of sword chi, as if a sword god had descended. It's him, it's really him. Zhao Kun looked at the descending figure and trembled uncontrollably. Great hero, this has nothing to do with me. Manager Li screamed. Lin Xian's expression was cold. He slowly descended into the main hall. He looked at the two people below, his eyes filled with murderous intent. I said that if you were obedient, I would let you go. However, your actions have disappointed me. Lin Xian shook his head. Great hero, we were wrong. Please give me another chance. Zhao Kun was about to cry. There was no other way. Even the powerful Tianhu had been killed, let alone him. Now he regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. Why did he think he was smart enough to send Manager Du's body away? If he had held back at that time, this would not have happened. Let you go? Lin Xian sneered. Stop dreaming. I'm here today to deal with you. The Green Wolf Gang has no need to exist. What? Zhao Kun trembled. Lin Xian's words were tantamount to announcing his death sentence. He gasped for breath, and a hint of madness appeared in his eyes. Then he grabbed the old man next to him. Manager Li, it's time for you to contribute to the gang. After saying that, he waved his arm and threw the old man toward Lin Xian. At the same time, he used his speed and ran outside. Men, come quickly. Zhao Kun roared like a madman. He knew that no one in Broken Mountain City was a match for Lin Xian. He only did that to buy some time for his subordinates. Lin Xian sneered disdainfully. He smashed the old man flying toward him with a punch, then pointed his finger at him. Whoosh! His finger shone like a small sword. It streaked across the void and stabbed Zhao Kun in an instant. Come! Zhao Kun had just run into the main hall when his body froze. He slowly lowered his head and realized that his heart was transparent. Boom! His body fell down and he couldn't be any more dead. Ah! Gang leader. The gang members who came from all directions screamed when they saw this scene. At this moment, Lin Xian walked out slowly in a black robe. He exuded a terrifying aura. Devil! Devil! The surrounding martial artists saw this and ran away frantically. Lin Xian flew into the sky and stood in the void. Then he slammed his palm down. Boom! A golden palm condensed and fell rapidly like a mountain. Following it were countless bolts of lightning. In an instant, the main hall of the Green Wolf Gang was reduced to dust. A terrifying handprint appeared on the ground. Countless bolts of golden lightning struck in all directions. It was a terrifying sight. The headquarters of the Green Wolf Gang was reduced to ashes. After doing all this, Lin Xian turned and left. Not long after, a martial artist in a green robe appeared in the void. There was a red flower petal drawn on his chest. He looked at the destroyed main hall below with a cold glint in his eyes. "I'm a step too late," the mysterious man said softly. Then, he snorted coldly and a powerful murderous aura flashed across his body. "How dare you offend the Green-Red Gang? Even if I have to go to the ends of the earth, I'll kill you." The middle-aged martial artist in a green robe transformed into a fighter and grabbed at the void. Then, his eyes flickered with a hint of ferocity. "Kid, you can't run away." Whoosh! He turned into a ray of green light and disappeared. In the Flying Tiger City, there was also a martial artist in a green robe. This martial artist was slightly older, but he had the same arrogance as the previous one. It seemed that he was also a member of the Green-Red Gang. The old man in a green robe sat in the middle of the main hall. His face was gloomy, causing the entire main hall to be filled with an oppressive feeling. "Send everyone out. We must find that kid. Red Flower Emissary, that kid has an accomplice. We have already captured him. As long as we spread the news, we will definitely be able to lure him here." "Very good." The old man nodded in satisfaction. Then he said eerily, "It seems that we have been too kind recently. Some people have already forgotten about the Green-Red Gang. How dare he kill a member of the Green-Red Gang? I will let him know how foolish his actions are." The old man's voice was low. A red flower petal appeared behind him, shining with a demonic red light. Chapter 702. After Lin Xian annihilated the Green Wolf Gang, he flew back to Soaring Tiger City. This time he wanted to bring Yu Fei to the Immortal Martial Academy. However, when he returned to Soaring Tiger City, he learned that Yu Fei had been captured. This caused his little face to turn cold and gloomy. He had just killed the city lord of Soaring Tiger City and thought that he could intimidate everyone. He didn't expect that someone would dare to capture Yu Fei. This was a blatant provocation. Killing intent appeared in Lin Xian's eyes. He felt that he was too merciful. He only killed the city lord and didn't touch the others? Umph. With a cold snort, Lin Xian flew toward the city lord's manor. Soon he arrived above the city lord's manor. However, he furrowed his brows because he felt a powerful aura below. Supremacy? Who is it? Lin Xian was shocked. He didn't expect that after Jianghu died, another supremacy would appear. And this aura seemed to be even stronger than Jianghu. No wonder he dared to capture Yu Fei. It turned out that he had a new backer. Below, the green-robed old man sat in the main hall with his eyes closed. Suddenly he opened his eyes. The light in his eyes was like lightning, piercing through the void. Countless blood-colored petals danced in the hall. "You actually walked into a trap? How arrogant." The green-robed old man sneered. He waved his hand and the petals in the sky stopped. Then they flew up rapidly. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Countless red lights flashed. Each petal was like the sharpest hidden weapon, turning into a line of blood in the air. In an instant, these petals all rushed toward Lin Xian. Lin Xian wanted to go down, but in the next moment, countless red lights flew out, piercing through the hall and piercing toward him. The void trembled as if there were thousands of swords piercing into it. A terrifying aura sealed the entire sky. Danger. Lin Xian was shocked. Naturally, he could sense how terrifying this power was. His body flashed and he dodged swiftly like a flickering shadow. Countless afterimages appeared. Lin Xian's speed was extremely fast. At the same time, he used the vermilion bird seal, forming a burning vermilion bird that blasted forward. A boundless sea of fire spread out. The blazing energy intertwined, forming a huge fire net that enveloped the area ahead. Boom. Puff puff. When the two collided, a shock wave of energy erupted. The vast energy was like a real ocean wave, rampaging through the void, emitting a rumbling sound as it spread out in all directions. Sword radiance flickered in Lin Xian's eyes as the red lotus armor materialized on his body. He then drew his wind shadow sword and slashed out a sword radiance. It was as if a bolt of lightning had descended from the sky. The sword light was dazzling and dazzling. It split apart the red petals that filled the sky and tore open a vacuum. At the same time, his figure flashed as he dashed downwards. Boom. In the next moment, Lin Xian arrived at the main hall. He used his soul power to search for Yu Fei and soon found a clue. Releasing the dark red dragon and the snow-white monkey, he ordered them to secretly rescue Yu Fei, while he stared at the azure-robed elder below. "You two hurry up." Lin Xian secretly transmitted his voice, his expression solemn. This was because he sensed danger from the old man below. Second Heaven of Venerable Realm. Lin Xian took a deep breath. He did not expect a second Heaven of Venerable Realm expert to descend. Now that he had condensed his martial soul, his strength was equivalent to a first Heaven of Venerable Realm expert. In addition, his great dragon sword soul was an offensive saint art, which gave him the strength to kill a first Heaven of Venerable Realm expert. However, it was still a little difficult for him to encounter a second Heaven of Venerable Realm expert. That was because it was extremely difficult to advance in the Venerable Realm, and every time he advanced, his strength would change tremendously. There were 9 heavens of Venerable Realm experts and each one was vastly different. A second Heaven of Venerable Realm expert could easily kill a first Heaven of Venerable Realm expert. However, Lin Xian had a sacred item like the Great Dragon Sword Soul after all. If he went all out, he might be able to fight a little. Thinking of this, Lin Xian decided to go all out. Below, the azure-robed elder was slightly dazed when he saw Lin Xian. Although he knew that the person who killed Tianhu was a young man, he did not expect him to be so young. Moreover, what shocked him even more was that he sensed that Lin Xian's cultivation was only at the peak of the spirit-detecting realm. This made him extremely suspicious, and he even thought that Lin Xian was hiding his cultivation. However, he checked again and found that Lin Xian was indeed at the peak of the spirit-detecting realm, but he could sense the power of his martial soul. Humph, he's just a fake Venerable Realm expert who has condensed his martial soul. I really don't know what Tianhu was doing to die in the hands of such a person. Brat, I don't know what despicable means you used to kill Tianhu, but since you've killed him, you must be punished. The azure-robed elder's voice was cold. How dare you kill someone from the Azure Red Society? I'll let you know what regret is. At the end of his sentence, countless red petals appeared beside the elder and spun around him rapidly. It was dazzling. The Azure Red Society. Lin Xian's pupils constricted. The people from the Azure Red Society had arrived. He had heard about the Azure Red Society before. It was a huge force that was even more powerful than the Flying Tiger City. One had to know that the Flying Tiger City and the Azure Wolf Gang were just branches of the Azure Red Society. One could imagine how terrifying they were. Lin Xian wasn't a fool. He wouldn't fight head-on. Right now, he had to save Flying Tiger City and head to the Immortal Martial Academy. Once he entered the Venerable Realm, the Azure Red Society would be nothing to him. For now, he just needed to delay for a while. Thinking of this, he waved the Wind Shadow Sword and slashed out countless sword chi. The sword chi was dazzling like a terrifying sea of lightning. It was boundless and the sky was filled with flashes of lightning. It made a dull sound and the entire hall was shaking non-stop. How dare you? The azure-robed elder sneered. He didn't expect that Lin Xian would dare to take the initiative to attack under such a huge gap in strength. However, it was all in vain. He was a second-level Venerable Realm expert and had absolute strength to suppress Lin Xian. He believed that as long as he attacked, he would be able to take down Lin Xian quickly. The petals around him danced quickly. Each petal was crystal clear and incomparably red, emitting a terrifying aura. Go! With a low shout, countless petals flew and formed a huge hand that slapped towards Lin Xian. The terrifying hand pushed out, causing the air to explode and the void to tremble unstably. The top of the hall was covered by a red light like a wave of blood. It was monstrous and terrifying. Slash. Lin Xian controlled the sword chi and slashed at the blood-colored hand formed by the petals. Clang. The sound of metal clashing resounded. The petals danced and the sword chi surged, instantly splitting the top of the hall. Boom. In the end, the terrifying energy blew the entire roof away, revealing the blue sky. He can actually block it? The azure-robed elder below was surprised. Even a first-level Venerable Realm expert couldn't block his palm, but this fake Venerable Realm expert in front of him actually blocked it? Interesting. The azure-robed elder sneered. I hope you won't disappoint me. Then he waved his sleeves and the situation above changed again. Those petals rotated and emitted light. They danced quickly and soon the blood-colored hand disappeared and was replaced by a hideous blood dragon. Brr. The sound was like thunder and it stirred up waves of blood that drowned the sky. Chapter 703. It was a crimson blood dragon, and its huge body filled the entire sky. Even the void seemed to be collapsing. A sharp and terrifying aura assaulted Lin Xian's senses, causing him to tense up. Is this the power of a second heaven supremacy? It's really powerful. Lin Xian gasped. This power had surpassed that of a first heaven supremacy. Fortunately, he had the Red Lotus armor and Dragon Sword soul so he could withstand it. Otherwise, another first heaven supremacy would not be able to withstand it. Brr. The flood dragon roared and charged at Lin Xian with its huge body. Wild wind slash. Lin Xian did not dare to be careless and used the wild wind slash that he had just comprehended. With a slash of his sword, a wild wind swept across the sky. Waves of air surged and whistled through the sky. Under everyone's horrified gazes, a huge sword chi storm gathered in the sky and became huge in the blink of an eye. The violent wind blew everything away, and more than half of the buildings in the City Lord Manor were destroyed. The scene was too terrifying. The flying tiger troop in the City Lord Manor trembled as if they were facing a Blood Realm storm. Lin Xian's sword move was comprehended from the Blood Realm storm, and it was extremely violent. The sword chi storm blew past like thousands of beasts roaring. It shook the space and charged toward the blood dragon. Rumble. In the sky, the huge storm collided with the ferocious blood dragon, setting off a terrifying storm. Lin Xian did not stop after slashing his sword. He formed a seal with his left hand and used the vermilion bird seal. The divine vermilion bird was born from fire. It was like a scorching sun in the sky as it charged toward the blood dragon. Lin Xian used 2 killer moves to fight against the second heaven supremacy. In an instant, the situation was in a stalemate. What? He actually withstood it? The martial artists below were shocked and could not believe it. The red flower emissary's face was also gloomy, and his eyes were cold. He snorted and prepared to attack with all his might. At that moment, a loud laugh came from the sky. "Ha, Kit, you are indeed here. How dare you kill someone from the Azure Red Gang? Let's see where you can run to this time." The voice was like a terrifying thunder god, deafening. "It's the green flower emissary." At that moment, all the martial artists in the City Lord Manor looked at the sky. Not good. Lin Xian's expression changed drastically. He could feel a powerful aura rapidly approaching. Another second-level venerable. He furrowed his brows. The situation was terrible and he couldn't resist at all. Fortunately, the dark red godly dragon and the dark red godly dragon rescued Yu Fei. Go. Without hesitation, Lin Xian grabbed Yu Fei and soared into the sky. "Kid, where do you think you're going?" Red Flower Emissary was furious. How could she allow Lin Xian to escape? Red flowers danced in the air, forming a large net that covered the sky. At the same time, the figure in the sky also reached out a terrifying palm that seemed to cover the entire sky. Lin Xian let out a long whistle as the wind and thunder wings appeared on his back. They were about 100 meters long. With a flap of the wings, he turned into a bolt of lightning and disappeared in a flash. Whoosh! Boom! The red net and the sky-covering hand missed their target. Immediately, 2 furious voices were heard. "Brat, no matter where you run to, I will kill you. Humph, Azure Red Society, I'll remember this. I'll pay you back 100 times for what you did today." Lin Xian's voice reverberated in the air. All the martial artists in Flying Tiger City were shocked, and the 2 second-level venerables quickly chased after him. However, they still lost him after half a day. The 2 of them roared crazily and destroyed the surrounding mountains and rivers. Lin Xian used his Earth-class movement technique and wind and thunder wings to successfully shake off the 2 of them. He stopped in a dense forest. Blurg, as soon as he landed, Yu Fei bent over and vomited. "No, I'm going to die. This is too exciting." Yu Fei sat on the ground, his legs trembling. He was only a mid-stage spirit detecting realm martial artist. He had never experienced such speed. He almost fainted just now. "I'm sorry that you've been dragged into this because of me," Lin Xian apologized. "It's okay." Yu Fei shook his head, then he stared at Lin Xian. "You look excited. Big brother, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. You're actually a venerable. Yu Fei will follow you from now on." You don't have to do this." Lin Xian smiled bitterly. "No, you're a man. You saved my life, so you're my benefactor." Yu Fei patted his chest and said, "From today onwards, my life is yours. But I'm going to the Immortal Martial Academy. You shouldn't be able to enter. Moreover, don't you have a job?" Lin Xian asked. "What job?" "Delivering goods in the Blood Plains every day. Is not interesting at all." Yu Fei curled his lips. "Every few days there will be storms. If this goes on, it's simply a waste of life." "Then how is it not a waste of life?" "Of course it's to cultivate martial arts, build a force and dominate the blood domain." Yu Fei's face was filled with hope. "Brother Xian, you're so powerful. Haven't you thought of developing in the blood domain? It's rare to see such a young venerable. I think that in a few decades, you'll be able to reach the top of the blood honorable list." At that time, you might even be able to replace those martial honorables. Lin Xian was deep in thought. Ever since he came to the Jianghu continent, he had plans to build his own force. Moreover, he had tried it in the Sand region. When he left, he even asked Nan Gongseng and Ma Rulong to develop in the Quicksand City. He was no longer an ignorant child. After seeing so many things, he knew the importance of a force to a martial artist. Moreover, after entering the martial honorable realm, the resources needed were even more precious. It was difficult to obtain enough with one's own strength. If there was a force to handle it, it would save a lot of trouble. Moreover, this was for the sake of his family in the future. He had left the Xia country for 3 years. In these 3 years he had always had one goal, which was to save his family. In the past he thought that condensing a martial soul was enough. However, when he met the Black Dragon sect's leader, he changed his mind. The other party's strength was too terrifying. He was very close to the King realm. If he went back rashly, not only would he not be able to save his family, he might be captured by the other party and snatched away the great dragon sword soul. Therefore he had to have enough strength to return to the Tianan region and save his family. At this point Lin Xian had 2 goals. First, wait for the palace of Ares to open and ask about his father's whereabouts. Second, increase his strength and go back to save his family. All of these required strength. Therefore he planned to enter the Immortal Martial Academy to increase his strength. At the same time he would secretly build a force in the Blood region and slowly develop it. What's your specialty? Lin Xian asked. Hearing this, Yu Fei was delighted. He knew that this was a test. Brother Xian, although I'm not strong, I'm very familiar with the Blood region. Moreover, I'm good at gathering information. I can definitely help you. Alright, let's go to the Immortal Martial Academy first. When the time comes you can stay in a nearby city. We'll discuss it later, Lin Xian said. Damn kid, you want to build a force? The dark red dragon popped his head out, looking excited. I raise my dragon claw in agreement. When the time comes, I'll dominate the entire Blood region. All the resources will be mine. The dark red dragon laughed. Then I'll be able to recover quickly. Chapter 704. Yu Fei was indeed a survival expert. Relying on his experience, Lin Xian was able to avoid danger several times. The 2 of them finally arrived at Windy City. Windy City was a huge city and also an important transportation hub. It was also a place one had to pass to reach the Immortal Martial Academy. Hence, this place was incomparably prosperous. Moreover, according to Yu Fei, this city was different from the Flying Tiger City. It wasn't dominated by a single power. Instead, many powers coexisted in the city. Thinking about it, such an important city couldn't be controlled by a single power. After paying the entrance fee, the 2 of them entered the city. Originally, Lin Xian planned to rest and replenish his supplies before leaving. However, when he was eating, he heard news about the auction. This made him somewhat tempted. He had many things on him that needed to be dealt with, and this auction was undoubtedly a good opportunity. Brother Xian, you want to participate in the auction? Yu Fei asked. And I have some things to sell. Also, I want to see if there are any good things. Why don't you wait for a while? Anyway, this place isn't far from the Immortal Martial Academy. You can come again when the time comes. Oh, why? In 3 months there will be a super auction here. It's going to be huge. Yu Fei continued. In previous super auctions there will always be good things coming out. Previously there were 2 Earth-ranked martial arts here. Earth-ranked martial arts. Lin Xian was astonished. As his cultivation increased, he realized how powerful and precious Earth-ranked martial arts were. This kind of martial arts was only mastered by the superpowers. It was impossible for ordinary people to master it. However, the super auction here provided an opportunity. Earth-ranked martial arts were rare. If it really appeared, those experts from the Blood realm would definitely go crazy. 3 months later, okay. Lin Xian nodded. He decided to come again 3 months later. After eating, the 2 of them rested for a night before setting off again. This time they didn't enter the city. Instead, they set off for the Immortal Martial Academy. Finally, they arrived at Skypool City. Skypool City was much bigger than Windy City and was also ancient. No one seemed to remember when it was built. It was as if the Blood realm existed, Skypool City existed. There was another reason why Skypool City was so famous, and that was because there was one of the most famous academies in the Sky Martial continent, the Immortal Martial Academy. The Immortal Martial Academy was extremely large, occupying almost half of the entire Skypool City. It was like a gigantic monster standing tall on the ground with no end in sight. Within the Skypool City, there was only the Immortal Martial Academy. The other powers in the blood realm had no way to enter, nor did they dare to enter. There had once been an 8th-level venerable who had caused trouble here, and he had been killed in the end. From then on, Heavenly Pool City had become a forbidden area of the blood realm. However, it had become a paradise for the geniuses of the Jianghu continent. It was precisely because of the strength and safety of the Sky Pool City and the Immortal Martial Academy that countless geniuses from all over the continent gathered here. Lin Xian came at the right time, because in a few days, it would be the day of the Academy's selection. As long as they passed the test, they would be able to enter the Academy to cultivate. Therefore the Sky Pool City was very lively at this moment. There were young martial artists everywhere. Lin Xian and Yu Fei walked on the street and looked at the people around them. They praised him in their hearts. Elder brother Xian, this is my first time coming to Sky Pool City. The martial artists here are so strong. Yu Fei had a look of envy on his face. Lin Xian was also surprised. They were indeed very strong. In just a short while, he had already seen a few martial artists who weren't weaker than him. Their auras were abnormally strong, and there were even faint traces of martial spirits. As expected of the Immortal Martial Academy, it actually attracted so many young experts. Lin Xian was excited. Competing with geniuses was the greatest joy. Sorry, it's full. It's full? After asking a few ins, they were all told that they were all full. There were no extra rooms. Not only Lin Xian, the other martial artists who came later also didn't have a place to stay. I've heard of a place where there should be a place to stay. Yu Fei thought for a long time and said slowly. However, it seems that it's not easy to stay in a room there. Not easy? Lin Xian was puzzled. Elder brother Xian, you'll know when you get there. Very quickly Lin Xian arrived at the place mentioned by Yu Fei. Wind Sweeping Inn wasn't just a building, it was a huge and luxurious inn. From ordinary rooms to exquisite courtyards, it had everything. At this moment, Wind Sweeping Inn was surrounded by countless martial artists. Seeing this scene, Lin Xian sighed. With so many people, even if there were empty rooms in the past, there were probably none left now. Looking at the crowded and noisy scene, Lin Xian felt that it was somewhat funny. It was hard for him to imagine that so many young geniuses would actually quarrel over a room. Bang! A low voice interrupted Lin Xian's fantasy. He raised his head and saw the crowd in front of Wind Sweeping Inn parting. Several figures were sent flying out and fell to the ground. Are you deaf? If I said there's no room, there's no room. You still dare to be angry with me? The young and beautiful lady boss walked out with her hands on her waist. She was as arrogant as a princess. You dare to hit us? The few young men crawled up from the ground, their faces filled with indignation. It was too embarrassing. To think that as geniuses they couldn't even rent a room and were even thrown out. Moreover, there were so many people watching. How were they going to survive in the future? The few young men were so angry that their faces turned pale. They wanted nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. Among them, one of the young men stared at the young lady boss as killing intent surged from his body. Oh, you still dare to hit us? The young lady boss sneered. Why don't you try? After saying that, she took out a signboard. Open your dog eyes and look carefully. This is the Immortal Martial Academy's examination room. If you dare to cause trouble here, you can forget about entering the Immortal Martial Academy for the rest of your life. Hearing this, the young man's body trembled. He retracted his aura and turned to leave with a face covered in dirt. A piece of trash dares to behave atrociously here. The young lady boss clapped her hands and turned to leave. At this moment, a voice rang out. Lady boss room? The young lady boss had an impatient look on her face. She turned around and was about to shout coldly. However, when she saw the jade pendant on the young man's waist, she smiled charmingly. Sky number 15. You're really lucky. There's only one room left. What? There's still room? What's going on? Isn't there no more rooms? Yeah, why can he stay here but we can't? Fuck, even if it's the Immortal Martial Academy's inn, they can't be so arrogant. This isn't fair. The group of people were instantly unhappy. A bunch of idiots, what do you know? The young lady boss coldly snorted. She pointed at the young man's jade pendant and said, Do you see that? An immortal jade pendant. He's a quasi-immortal martial disciple who passed the internal examination. Can you guys even compare? What? He passed the internal examination? Everyone was shocked, staring at the young man in disbelief. The Immortal Martial Academy's examination was extremely harsh. Although these people were all geniuses, only 10% of them could pass the examination. Chapter 705. This young man in front of them actually passed the internal test, which really shocked them. The young lady boss sneered with her hands on her hips. How is it? Are you convinced now? If you're a candidate for the internal test, you'll also have a room. Everyone was unwilling. Could it be that only candidates can stay here? This is too unfair. Yeah, we also have a chance to enter the Immortal Martial Academy. You can't treat us like this. Fair? The young lady boss turned around. Fine, I'll give you fairness. There's only one room left, and it's a high-class suite, the Storm Courtyard. If you have the ability, come and stay here. Storm Courtyard. Everyone was shocked. Many of them had thoughts of retreating because the Storm Courtyard wasn't an ordinary courtyard. It was the best courtyard in Wind-Sweeping Tower. Not only did one have to pay an exorbitant rent to stay here, but one also had to have great strength and status. In other words, ordinary people wouldn't be able to stay here. However, the cultivators who came here were all geniuses with powerful clans behind them. Hence, after some consideration, they decided to stay in the Storm Courtyard. Lin Xian stood at his original spot. After learning about the Storm Courtyard, he was also slightly surprised. Then he shook his head slightly, not intending to compete. Lady boss, I'll take the Storm Courtyard. You'll take it? What arrogance. Who are you? Lady boss, leave the Storm Courtyard for me. Stop fighting, it's mine. The group of people chattered and quarreled again. The young lady boss crossed her arms in front of her chest and looked coldly at them. Suddenly a childish voice rang out, "Stop fighting, it's full. There's no more Storm Courtyard." No more? Everyone vomited blood and shouted in dissatisfaction. Didn't you say there was more? Why is there no more? Lady boss, what's wrong? However, before the lady boss could speak, a young man of 14 or 15 years old appeared in front of everyone. The young man was wearing exquisite clothes and said with a childish face, "Because the Storm Courtyard was just taken by my young master." Who does your young master think he is? How dare he snatch it from us? Ask him to give up the room or don't blame us for being impolite. Kid, this place is too dangerous. It's not something you can get involved in. Get lost. The group of people's faces filled with dissatisfaction and shouted coldly. Hearing these people insulting the young master, the young man's face tightened and anger appeared in his eyes. He said angrily, "Hurry up and apologize or don't blame me for being rude." You're welcome? Everyone laughed. How can you not be polite? Don't tell me you want to fight? They didn't put the youth in their eyes at all. It was no wonder. These people were all geniuses and were extremely proud. Not to mention a young man, even if they were geniuses of the same generation, they would not be convinced at all. However, in the next moment they were all stunned. It was because the young man in front of them suddenly formed a seal with his small hands, releasing a dazzling radiance that pushed forward. Bang! Those arrogant martial artists were caught off guard and were hit by the light, immediately retreating. Whoosh! For a moment, a vacuum appeared in front of Wind-Sweeping Tower. Everyone was shocked and a trace of fear appeared in their eyes. A 14 or 15-year-old child was actually able to repel them. Especially those who were hit, their faces were filled with disbelief. However, this expression was quickly replaced by anger. Brat, you dare to attack. Do you want to die? Being defeated by a young man in front of everyone made them feel ashamed. If news of this spread, they wouldn't be able to live anymore. In the distance, Lin Xian was also surprised. The attack just now wasn't very powerful, but it was very exquisite. It could be said that the young man had completely relied on a mysterious and exquisite martial arts technique to repel everyone. Interesting. I didn't expect Sky Pool City to have so many experts. Lin Xian was excited. If a young man was so amazing, how powerful would the young man be? In front of him, someone couldn't help but attack. The wind from the palm was so strong that it seemed to tear the void apart. However, the young man was disdainful. He stepped forward and kept dodging, calmly avoiding the palm every time. What? Everyone was shocked. This was once again beyond their expectations. However, what surprised them was what was happening next. They saw the young man continuously forming seals in the void, forming a blue treasure bottle and raising it above his head. Boom. The mouth of the bottle was facing down, and a ray of light shot out. The light was vast and mighty like the Milky Way, surging in the void and crashing into the opponent in the blink of an eye. Poof. With one move, the opponent was sent flying. Then the young man shot out another Milky Way river and blocked the front of Windsweep Inn. My young master has booked Windsweep Inn. Does anyone have a problem with that? The young voice sounded again. Everyone was silent. The battle just now had shocked them. That exquisite footwork, that mysterious hand seal, every one of them shocked them. The young man's cultivation wasn't very strong, but his strength was terrifying. The young master behind him must be even more powerful. No one dared to take the risk because they weren't confident. Therefore there was a short period of silence. The young man was satisfied. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and he turned around to pay the room fee. However, at that moment, a clear voice came from afar again. Windsweeping is ours. Everyone was shocked and looked back. Who was it that dared to attack them? Lin Xian also looked over curiously. He saw 7 figures at the end of the street walking toward them. They walked very slowly. Each step was a small one, but each step was hundreds of meters away. It was as if they had shrunk the ground into an inch. In the blink of an eye they arrived in front of everyone. Only then did everyone see them clearly. 7 young and beautiful girls appeared in front of everyone. They were beautiful and had impressive figures. They wore long white dresses with a red leaf embroidered on their sleeves. They didn't stop and walked directly toward Windsweep Inn. Brother Xian, let's go and take a look. Yu Fei was excited when he saw the 7 beauties. Lin Xian nodded and the 2 of them walked forward. The martial artists around them also surrounded them. Lady boss, I want a room. The last girl walked out and said in a delicate voice. The young and beautiful lady boss glanced at the red leaf embroidered on the sleeves of the 7 girls and laughed. What a coincidence. The last Windsweepin has been booked by my young master. Before the lady boss could finish, the young man spoke first. Your young master? The young girls laughed as if they had heard something funny. In the Jianghu continent, there are only 4 people who can be called young masters. But as far as we know, those 4 people won't come here. Who does your young master think he is? How dare he call himself a young master? The 7 girls chuckled and didn't put the young man in their eyes. The young man was so angry that his face turned pale. Damn it, how dare you humiliate my young master? Get lost. The girl who asked the question earlier said coldly, you don't have the right to speak here. Ask your young master to come here. Everyone was stunned. The 7 beautiful girls in front of them were very powerful. They actually ignored the young man. Chapter 706. Her cold voice caused the surroundings to become silent. The young man's face turned pale. He clenched his fists and clenched his index finger. The spiritual energy in his body surged. You want to fight? The young girl smiled. I advise you to give up on that idea. Otherwise you will die a horrible death. The young man didn't believe her. He quickly formed a seal with his hands. However, halfway through, his body stiffened. A line of blood appeared on his cheek and traces of blood flowed out. The young man was terrified. Although the wound wasn't deep, he didn't see the trajectory of the other party's attack. If the attack was aimed at his throat, he might have already died. The surrounding martial artists were even more shocked. Most of them didn't see it clearly. Only a few experts understood. Brother Xian, what happened? Yu Fei was puzzled. Maple leaves, Lin Xian said. The wound was caused by the maple leaves. He saw the scene clearly. The mysterious young girl had used a maple leaf to cut the young man's cheek. The speed and strength of the attack were very precise. It could be said that it would be easy for the other party to kill the young man. The young man was terrified. He raised his hands in the air, not knowing what to do. At this moment, a pair of strong hands supported him. Young master. The young man was surprised. Everyone was shocked and looked over. Lin Xian also looked up curiously. A young man in a blue and white robe appeared. There was a jade flute on his waist. At this moment his expression was cold. It was you who injured my servant? The young man in the blue and white robe asked. It was me. The young girl sneered. Remember, my name is Xiaofeng. The young man's voice was calm. If you hear this name in the future, take a detour. You are courting death. Suyu shouted. She raised her hand and threw out 2 maple leaves. It was so fast that most people didn't see it clearly. Buzz. However, Xiaofeng grabbed the 2 maple leaves with his hand. The 2 maple leaves trembled between his fingers. They wanted to escape, but they were powerless. You dare to be arrogant with such little strength? Go back and train for another 2 years. Hearing this, Suyu was enraged. She shouted and thrust her palms out like butterflies. A terrifying and vast power gushed out. Palm shadows filled the sky. It was extremely dazzling. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect the 2 of them to really fight. The people of Wind-Sweeping Building were displeased and wanted to reprimand him. At this moment, another young girl walked out, sprinkling maple leaves all over the sky. This is Red Leaf Valley's business. Unrelated people scram. His voice wasn't loud, but everyone heard it clearly. Red Leaf Valley. It's them. Many people gasped and quickly retreated. This was a great power that was incomparably powerful. Moreover, their way of doing things was extreme. Just like just now, if someone tried to stop them after they scattered the red leaves, they would become the target of their slaughter. So domineering? It couldn't be helped. This was a world where the strong were respected. In the past, there were supremacies who broke their rules and were all killed. Su Yu and Xiao Feng were fighting. Both of them controlled their power and didn't affect wind-sweeping tower, as if they were worried about something. Bang. Su Yu was knocked back. She clutched her chest in pain. You dare to hurt me? Humph. Others might be afraid of your Red Leaf Valley, but our Xiao family isn't. Xiao Feng said coldly. Go. Su Yu snorted coldly. Suddenly, the 7 people attacked together. Stubborn. Xiao Feng coldly snorted. The 7 of them formed a formation that was incomparably profound. The terrifying and exquisite power was dazzling. However, Xiao Feng still dealt with it calmly. However, the surrounding people weren't so lucky. Especially the young attendant. He was sent flying by the energy wave. Bang. The young attendant screamed. His body was sent flying like a meteor. Xiao Feng was furious. His body swayed, but he was blocked by the formation of the 7 people. Seeing the young attendant flying out, everyone dispersed. No one dared to catch him. The warning from Red Leaf Valley still echoed in their ears. Moreover, Red Leaf Valley was vicious. They even dared to kill supremacy, so no one dared to catch him. Everyone dispersed and a vacuum appeared. However, there were 2 people who were exceptions. They were Lin Xian and Yu Fei. Yu Fei was afraid and wanted to retreat. However, seeing that Lin Xian didn't move, he could only stand still. Lin Xian looked at the young attendant flying over and sighed. He waved his sleeve and caught the young attendant. Thank you. The young attendant's face was pale as he thanked him weakly. What? Everyone was shocked. They looked at this scene in disbelief. There was actually someone who dared to interfere in Red Leaf Valley's matters. Was he tired of living? The young and beautiful lady boss was also surprised. She stared at Lin Xian and suddenly frowned as if she had discovered something. The most furious ones were the 7 girls from Red Leaf Valley. One of them even shot out several maple leaf concealed weapons towards Lin Xian and the attendant. The attendant trembled. He couldn't see the trajectory at all. Everyone sneered as they watched the show. They thought that Lin Xian was dead meat. Yu Fei also stood behind Lin Xian with a nervous expression. Lin Xian, on the other hand, frowned slightly. With a wave of his sleeve, he formed a whirlpool of energy and collected the maple leaf concealed weapon. What? Nothing. Everyone was stunned. They realized that they had underestimated Lin Xian. The people from Red Leaf Valley were also stunned and surprised. At this moment, Xiao Feng shouted angrily. A powerful aura erupted from his body and forced the 7 people back. Both sides stopped and faced each other. Xiao Feng's body flashed and instantly appeared in front of Lin Xian. Brother, thank you for your help. Xiao Feng said. How should I address you? Lin Xian. Brother Lin, I will remember this favor. On the other hand, the people from Red Leaf Valley were enraged. They glared at Lin Xian with murderous intent in their eyes. Brat, you dare to interfere in Red Leaf Valley's matters. You're dead meat. Good, I'll kill both of you today. Su Yu snorted. Alright, everyone stop. At this moment, the young and beautiful lady boss said, There's no need to fight. I've already decided who to give the room to. Hearing this, Su Yu and the others stopped and said proudly, Storm Courtyard will definitely be ours. Sisters, let's go. No. The young and beautiful lady boss shook her finger. I'll give the room to him. Then she pointed to the front. Xiao Feng. Everyone was shocked. The people from Red Leaf Valley were furious. What did you say? Why are you giving it to that Xiao guy? It's not Xiao guy. It's that Lin Xian young hero Lin. The young and beautiful lady boss smiled and persuaded. What? Everyone was stunned and couldn't believe it. Even Xiao Feng was surprised. This result was out of everyone's expectations. For a moment, many people stared at Lin Xian with unkind expressions. If it was Red Leaf Valley or Xiao Feng, they could tolerate it. But to give it to an unknown martial artist, they couldn't tolerate it. Especially the 7 girls from Red Leaf Valley. They were filled with killing intent as they stared at Lin Xian. They couldn't wait to tear him apart. Lin Xian smiled bitterly and rubbed his nose. Giving the room to him was something he never thought of. But it sounded good. He was worried about not having a room to live in. As for Red Leaf Valley, since he had already offended them, it wouldn't matter if he offended them again. What? Someone was unconvinced. I like people who stand up for justice. Can't I? The young and beautiful lady boss snorted. If that's the case, then I'll take my leave. Brother Lin, see you at the academy. Xiao Feng cupped his fists and left with his errand boy. Chapter 707. Lin Xian's unexpected acquisition of the Tempest Courtyard made him the target of envy. The people from the Red Leaf Valley especially wanted to attack him. However, they were stopped by the young and beautiful lady boss. The lady boss was very aggressive and chased away the people from the Red Leaf Valley. The 7 beautiful girls looked unfriendly, but they seemed to be very wary of the Tempest Courtyard, so they did not attack. However, before they left, Suyu warned in a cold voice, "Kid, how dare you steal from my master? You're dead meat." Master? Everyone was shocked. These 7 outstanding women were actually servants. Just how powerful was their master? Could he be a prodigy from the Red Leaf Valley? Someone guessed. However, no matter what, they all thought that Lin Xian was dead meat. Lin Xian pursed his lips. Since he had already offended them, there was no need to be polite. Sure, we'll talk about this after you enter the academy. Then he ignored the 7 mad women and walked into the Tempest Courtyard with Yu Fei. Only a group of envious rabbits was left behind. The Tempest Courtyard was very large. It was equivalent to a small mansion. There were landscape gardens, pavilions, and a green lake in the center. It was very beautiful. Lin Xian and Yu Fei were each given a room and prepared to rest. However, the young and beautiful lady boss came not long after. She carried a few dishes and a pot of spirit wine into Lin Xian's room. The lady boss was very young. Lin Xian estimated that she was only 20 years old. Her snow-like skin was smoother than silk. Her long hair was black and her big eyes were watery. When she smiled, it was as if she could speak. Her 2 sweet dimples added a bit of cuteness. Lin Xian was stunned when he saw this scene. He did not expect the lady boss to personally deliver food. Moreover, combined with the previous incident, he felt that the lady boss seemed to want to get close to him. This made him wary. "How is it? Is your stay comfortable?" The young and beautiful lady boss asked. "Come, have a taste of the dishes I cooked." "What, do you want me to feed you?" Lin Xian, in the end he sighed. "Tell me, what's your motive? Purpose?" The young and beautiful lady boss blinked. "Why do you think so?" "You're willing to offend Red Leaf Valley to give me the Storm Courtyard. I'm afraid it's not just because of interest, right? Sai, you really don't have a conscience. I let you stay in a luxurious house and you still suspect others." The young and beautiful lady boss lightly snorted. "But to be honest, it really isn't because of Red Leaf Valley." "Then why?" "Because I've seen you before." "Where?" "In a painting. I didn't believe it at first. I didn't think that you really existed." Lin Xian. He didn't quite understand and wanted to ask for clarification. However, the young and beautiful lady boss didn't seem to give him a chance. "Alright, enjoy your meal. I have to go. Wind Sweeping Restaurant is very busy. There are many things that need to be taken care of." With that, she stood up and walked away, swaying her hips. When he opened the door, he saw Yu Fei walking towards him. The young and beautiful lady boss giggled and then left. Yu Fei was stunned. Then, he seemed to have understood something and revealed a strange smile. He ran into the room and closed the door. He said mysteriously, "Brother Xian, I really admire you. You settled it so quickly." Settled what? Lin Xian didn't understand. Settled the lady boss. "Don't tell me that you two aren't having an affair. Even if you beat me to death, I won't believe it." Yu Fei had an I know look on his face. Lin Xian. In the following days, Lin Xian stayed in the Storm Courtyard to cultivate while Yu Fei went out to gather information. Although Yu Fei's strength was ordinary, he was indeed very good at gathering information. Soon he returned to Lin Xian's room. "Brother Xian, I found out." Lin Xian opened his eyes. "Tell me about it." The Immortal Martial Academy's examination is divided into 3 categories: aptitude, strength, and will. Those who pass all 3 will be able to enter the Immortal Martial Academy. If you're not a disciple from the internal examination, the normal examination rate is around 10%. Moreover, this is under the condition that all of you are geniuses. After hearing Yu Fei's explanation, Lin Xian understood. To put it bluntly, the Immortal Martial Academy wanted geniuses among geniuses. How many days will it start? 3 days. Also, according to my sources, the number of geniuses this time is much more than before. It seems that there's something in the academy that's attracting them. But as for what it is exactly, I don't know. More people? Lin Xian rubbed his chin. You've already gathered enough information. As for the rest, we'll talk about it after I enter the academy. Next, Lin Xian gave Yu Fei a sum of spirit stones and allowed him to stay in Skypool City. Of course, it wasn't in the storm courtyard. This place was too expensive. Even for Lin Xian, the price of the house was too high. In these 3 days, not only Lin Xian was gathering information, the others were also gathering information. Not only that, some of the experts were not only gathering information about the examination, but also about their opponents. Wind-sweeping pavilion, falling wind courtyard. A white-robed figure sat beside the lake like a fairy. Beside her, there was a cute girl and a middle-aged scholar. In front of her, there was a half-kneeling black-robed man. That white-robed girl was Murong Qingqing. She actually came to Skypool City as well. How's the investigation going? Miss, it's done. There are a few powerful geniuses staying in the wind-sweeping pavilion. Floating life courtyard, Xiao Li, a genius from the Sand region. He specializes in the saber and his strength is estimated to be at the first level of the Venerable Realm. Soaring cloud courtyard, Lan Bai, specializes in poison and once poisoned a Venerable to death. He seems to be related to the 10,000 Poison sect. Setting sun courtyard, Xin Yaotian, first level of the Venerable Realm. He's a disciple of the Shen clan. As for the storm courtyard, this person is very special. It's said that when the Red Leaf Valley was competing with others, he was randomly selected by the lady boss. Randomly selected? Murong Qingqing muttered. Those who can enter this place are no ordinary people. What did you find out? I haven't found anything yet. I only know that his name is Lin Xian. Lin Xian? Murong Qingqing was slightly stunned. She then asked, is he a young man? Yes. I didn't expect him to come here. Murong Qingqing muttered. She then said, very well, you can leave. Yes. The black-robed man respectfully left. He probably came to the Immortal Martial Academy because he heard the news of the Palace of War being sealed. The Wild Palm Scholar said. Humph, that despicable fellow. I curse him to fail the examination. Ling Er huffed. Murong Qingqing was very happy. This is great. After entering the academy, there will be plenty of opportunities. I don't believe that he can reject this time. Miss, although this Lin Xian's talent is abnormal, we still have to prioritize that matter. The Wild Palm Scholar reminded. Don't worry, I know. Murong Qingqing nodded. If the news is true, then it's too shocking. No matter what, I have to fight for that qualification. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The Immortal Martial Academy's examination had begun. The first round tested one's aptitude. It mainly probed one's physique, bloodline, talent and other innate conditions. In this aspect, Lin Xian's talent was outstanding. His comprehension was extremely high, and his physique was also nourished by the great Earth Spirit Elixir. However, in the aspect of bloodline he was ordinary. Compared to those cultivators who possessed the power of bloodlines, he was somewhat ordinary. Chapter 708. In a public square in Heavenly Pool City, there were many strange instruments and arrays. Beside them were the official disciples of the Immortal Martial Academy. In the middle were a few elders. They were the main examiners this time. They looked at the crowd in the public square with a satisfied expression. There are more people than expected this time. Yeah, I hope there are some good seedlings. It's best if they have the power of bloodline. The elders discussed in a low voice. They were looking forward to the examination this time. Those who were in charge of the instruments and arrays were the official disciples. They looked around arrogantly. Instantly, the young male disciples frowned in dissatisfaction. But because of their status, they could only bear with it. On the other hand, the female disciples were staring at the official disciples with infatuation. Some of them were even throwing flirtatious glances at them. Brother Young, I heard that Goddess Murong is here as well. Is that true? Among the official disciples, many of them were scanning the crowd. They were still young and it was the time when they were in love. In addition, Murong Qingqing's reputation was too great. Hence, these people were very curious. Yeah. The young man who was called Brother Yang nodded slightly. His gaze swept across half of the crowd and stopped at a spot. Yan Qingyang's lips curled up, revealing a smile that he thought was dashing. That was Murong Qingqing. Hearing this, the surrounding disciples were excited. They looked over and saw a beautiful white figure in the crowd. She was like a fairy descending. She was extremely beautiful. So beautiful. The rumors are true. A peerless beauty. Whoever can gain her favor will definitely be blessed by 3 lifetimes. With Brother Yang around, we can definitely get her. The surrounding disciples complimented. You little brat, I like your sweet mouth. Yan Qingyang laughed. He looked at Murong Qingqing with a face full of adoration. He was attracted to such a peerless beauty at first sight. At the same time, he swore in his heart that he must get her. Lin Xian also saw Murong Qingqing. However, he didn't walk over. Instead, he nodded and greeted her from afar. In such an occasion, he would definitely become an enemy of the public if he walked over. Lin Xian didn't want to get into trouble. At the same time, he also saw Xiao Li and Xin Yaotian. Lin Xian also greeted the former. As for the latter, he completely ignored him. Xin Yaotian was so angry that his teeth were itching. His eyes were dark as he stared at Lin Xian, killing intent surfacing. Now that he'd successfully advanced into the Exalt realm, he was absolutely confident in his ability to kill Lin Xian. Brat, I'll let you be arrogant for a while. Once we enter the academy, see how I'll kill you. Boom. The bell rang and everyone fell silent. At this moment, an elder from the Immortal Martial Academy stood out and announced in a clear voice, "Let the examination begin. The first segment, the aptitude test, begin." Then everyone started the test according to the order. The test was divided into 10 groups, and each group had 3 light pillars, respectively testing talent, constitution, and bloodline. Every test had a score of 1 to 9. Since most people didn't have bloodline power, they passed with a score of 12 or more. However, the higher ones score, the more attention they would receive from the academy. Talent, 5 points, physique, 6 points, bloodline, 0 points, failed. Next. The examiner said coldly. Hearing this, the tester left dejectedly. Talent, 7 points, physique, 6 points, bloodline, 0 points, pass. Talent, 9 points, physique, 9 points. Lin Xian placed his palm on the first 2 light pillars, instantly causing the examiner to exclaim in surprise. They'd never seen someone with a score of 9 points, and this sound also attracted everyone's attention. Many examiners looked in Lin Xian's direction. At the same time, the elders also looked over curiously. Talent, physique, a score of 9 points. This kind of martial artist is really rare. Looks like another genius has appeared. I wonder how his bloodline is like. Another elder asked with concern. Everyone also wanted to know and paid attention. Among them, Murong Qingqing's white clothes fluttered, and her expression carried a trace of anticipation. Shen Yaotian's gaze was gloomy, and he kept cursing in his heart. Under everyone's focused gazes, Lin Xian placed his hand on the 3rd light pillar. However, in the next moment, that testing disciple was stunned. The reason for that was because Lin Xian's bloodline was displayed as 0 points. Bloodline 0 points. What? 0 points, so he doesn't have bloodline power. Many people heaved a sigh of relief. A few elders showed a trace of disappointment, as if they valued bloodline power very much. Xin Yaotian, on the other hand, sneered, "Sure enough, no bloodline power. Humph, a piece of trash. When the time comes, let's see how you compete with me." Yan Qingyang also shook his head, and his expression returned to normal. To be honest, Lin Xian's performance of a score of 9 points made him very nervous. However, now that he saw that the other party's bloodline was 0, he heaved a sigh of relief. He was a genius, but he'd never become a top genius. This was his evaluation of Lin Xian. Bloodline power was very important. It had a heaven-defying effect. Especially as one's cultivation increased, the effect of bloodline power became even more prominent. If a martial artist with ordinary talent awakened bloodline power, then he'd become a peerless genius in one leap. Because bloodline power was a kind of disguised inheritance. Only when a martial artist with a king or higher level appeared in the family could the bloodline be passed down. That power, once awakened, was very powerful. Lin Xian's talent and comprehension were extremely strong. There weren't many who could be compared to him. However, the first stage still involved bloodline. Therefore, in summary, Lin Xian wasn't outstanding. On the other hand, the other fellows who had bloodline power were very eye-catching. The people of the Immortal Martial Academy seemed to value bloodline very much. Therefore, in terms of proportion, they leaned towards bloodline. Moreover, they paid special attention to the few people who possessed the power of bloodline. Among them, Murong Qingqing, Xin Yaotian, and the rest all displayed bloodline power and attracted the attention of the elders. Lin Xian even noticed that even Xiao Li had bloodline power. "Kid, how are you feeling now?" The dark red divine dragon asked from the demonic beast pouch. Nothing much. In my opinion, bloodline power is a gift from the ancestors. It's good to have it, but it doesn't matter if you don't have it. Lin Xian's expression was calm and his eyes flickered. So what if I don't have bloodline power? When I reach the king level, I'll also produce my own bloodline power. He was very confident and didn't suffer any blow. It's okay, you didn't suffer much. The dark red divine dragon nodded. Little Xian, remember, you have the great dragon sword soul, which has already surpassed countless bloodline powers. As long as you don't die, you'll definitely be a super expert in the future. Lin Xian still agreed with this point, because he had already seen the power of the great dragon sword soul. That kind of combat strength was truly heaven-defying. So what if he had bloodline power? He had killed more than one divine bird palace martial artist who had the divine bird bloodline. Therefore Lin Xian really didn't take this test to heart. Half a day later, the first stage of the test ended. More than half of the martial artists were eliminated. They were all geniuses from their hometowns, but when they came here they could only accept the cruel reality. Chapter 709. After the first test ended, everyone's points were revealed. Those who had more than 12 points were considered to have passed. Moreover, the higher the points, the higher the ranking. The higher the ranking, the more attention one would receive after entering the academy. Murong Qingqing was ranked first, followed by Shaoli and Xin Yaotian. Lin Xian had 9 points and was ranked fourth without bloodline power. Xin Yaotian looked at Lin Xian and snorted coldly, his eyes full of disdain. Lin Xian shook his head slightly when he saw Xin Yaotian's provocative gaze. Xin Yaotian was no longer his match when they were in the Sand region. Now, even if Xin Yaotian had entered the Venerable Realm, he was still no match for him. As for bloodline power, Lin Xian believed that his dragon sword soul could completely suppress it. Therefore, in Lin Xian's opinion, Xin Yaotian's impatient provocation was purely courting death. Alright, let's begin the second test, the test of willpower. As soon as the elder finished speaking, half of the martial artists left dejectedly. They had all been defeated in the first test and could only be reduced to spectators at this moment. Lin Xian was not worried about the test of willpower at all. The so-called willpower referred to the heart of martial arts, which was whether one could resist temptation, fear, and other emotions. As a swordsman, Lin Xian had sword intent and his willpower was far stronger than ordinary people. Moreover, he also had the dragon sword soul, which could destroy everything. Could be said that very few things could affect him. As more than half of the martial artists left, the square suddenly became comfortable and was no longer so crowded. There were originally more than 1,000 candidates, but now there were only about 500 left. This time the test did not use light pillars but sparkling white jade platforms. Everyone was given a platform and then sat down. Lin Xian discovered that the platforms were engraved with complicated inscriptions that emitted an inexplicable power. More than 500 profound jade platforms combined with the underground formation to form the second stage of the test. The second test begins. As the voice fell, Lin Xian felt the surrounding space distort and the scenery around him began to change wildly. In the next moment he discovered that he was in a forest. In front of him, a masked man in black with a long sword in his hand charged quickly. The mighty sword chi quickly slashed towards Lin Xian. Lin Xian's eyes narrowed slightly but they did not flicker. Sword chi slashed down, passing through like smoke. At that moment, Lin Xian felt as if he had been struck by lightning, as if he could die at any moment. What a realistic illusion! He exclaimed inwardly. That scene just now was too realistic and he couldn't tell the difference at all. Moreover, the pain was even more realistic. Lin Xian realized that if someone didn't have a strong will, they might die here. Soon the scene changed and Lin Xian began the next round of the test. While Lin Xian was taking the test, a change occurred in the square. A few profound jade platforms glowed with white light, teleporting the martial artists on the platforms outside. All the martial artists who were teleported had pale faces and terrified expressions. The surrounding martial artists were shocked. They didn't know what kind of assessment these people had gone through, but looking at their state it was probably very horrifying. Looking at the defeated warriors, the official disciples revealed looks of disdain, while the elders behind them shook their heads slightly. If they can't even withstand the beginning of the test, it's useless no matter how good their aptitude is. Yes, those children are not bad. They passed almost instantly, a red-robed elder said with a smile. He was naturally paying attention to the few people who had bloodline power. That double 90 points is not bad either. He also passed instantly, the white-robed old lady said. A few elders watched and kept nodding. The illusion deepened bit by bit and the difficulty rose sharply. Many people revealed painful expressions. However, Lin Xian sat cross-legged on the profound jade platform without any reaction. This greatly surprised the elders. Is this child's will so firm? They had never seen such a calm candidate. One had to know that even Murong Qingqing and the others were frowning. Inside the illusion test, Lin Xian stood calmly with his hands behind his back. A dragon-shaped sword qi coiled around his body, destroying the illusions. Some of the weaker illusions were already on the verge of collapsing before they even reached Lin Xian. Lin Xian was like the nemesis of these illusions. Not only was he not affected, but he also restrained them. That double 90 points is not simple. A few elders exclaimed. The official disciples were shocked. They were all people who had gone through the illusion test, so they were very familiar with the illusion. It was a martial artist's nightmare. In the end, they couldn't even tell if it was an illusion or reality. However, Lin Xian wasn't affected at all. Yan Qingyang looked at Lin Xian with a gloomy look. He didn't believe that Lin Xian could continue to be so calm. However, in the next moment, a crisp sound shocked him. Not only him but everyone else was stunned. Even the elders widened their eyes as if they had seen a ghost. A few of them looked at each other and were too shocked to speak. That was because the mysterious jade platform that Lin Xian was sitting on suddenly cracked open as if it had been cut open by someone. That was too shocking. After entering the illusion, a martial artist couldn't control his body, let alone cut open the mysterious jade platform. Now, the mysterious jade platform was broken. Could it be that the illusion didn't affect him? A few elders were depressed. They had never seen such a thing. That illusion was extremely terrifying. Not to mention these young people, even those old monsters of the 4th or 5th honorable realm would be affected. Strange, this is really strange. A few of them couldn't understand. The moment the mysterious jade platform broke, Lin Xian came out of the illusion. After knowing what had happened, his face turned pale. Damn it, I shouldn't have used the great dragon sword soul to attack. Lin Xian muttered to himself. He was a little worried now. What would happen if he broke the mysterious jade platform? I'm not considered eliminated, right? Lin Xian was a little guilty. The elders suppressed the shock in their hearts as they stared at Lin Xian incessantly. It doesn't count, it doesn't count. Little guy, your performance is beyond our expectations. Young man, what's your name? I happen to be lacking a disciple. Are you interested in being my disciple? A few elders asked. Junior Lin Xian greets seniors. Lin Xian stood up and left the square as he said respectfully. The surrounding martial artists were shocked. The official disciples widened their eyes. It was the first time they had seen the elders so enthusiastic. Many people even suspected that they had been affected by the illusion. Yan Qingyang snorted. As a supreme talent, he didn't receive such treatment. How could a young man who had not even entered the sect receive such treatment? Therefore, he looked at Lin Xian with a hint of hostility. As time passed, more and more people were sent out. These people were pale and looked weak. They were in a bad state. Gradually, the number of people in the square decreased. In the end, only a few figures were left. Chapter 710. Only a few figures were left in the square. Those people were Murong Qingqing, Shaoli, and the others. In addition, Lan Bai and a few other experts were also persevering. However, the power of the illusion became stronger as they progressed. Even if those people were geniuses, they could not withstand it. Therefore, people were constantly being teleported out, and there were fewer and fewer people in the square. In the end, only Murong Qingqing, Shaoli, Lan Bai, and Xin Yaotian were left. I'm sure that Murong Qingqing will still be first in the second round. Of course, even a fool can see that. She's indeed a genius. Not only is she beautiful, but her strength is also unparalleled. Whoever marries such a woman will definitely be blessed for 10 lifetimes. Everyone was discussing with envy in their eyes. Soon, Lan Bai opened her eyes and sighed as she was teleported out. Not long after, Xin Yaotian was also teleported out. There were only 2 people left in the square. Xin Yaotian realized that Lin Xian had already been teleported out. Then, a disdainful smile appeared on his face. Trash. Not only do you have no bloodline power, but your willpower is also trash. So what if you're in the lead for a while? The path of martial arts is a test of comprehensive strength. I'll let you know who the real genius is. Xin Yaotian was extremely heroic. He could not wait to fight Lin Xian and trample him under his feet. In his opinion, Lin Xian must not have passed through the illusion and was teleported out in advance. Lin Xian ignored Shen Yaotian. Instead, he stared at the two figures in the square. Xiaoli was a swordsman. He possessed saber intent and had even condensed a saber soul. His willpower was extremely strong and was much stronger than ordinary martial artists. Lin Xian knew that. Therefore, he speculated that Xiaoli would definitely be able to persevere until the end. However, Murong Qingqing's performance was beyond his expectations. Lin Xian had always been unable to see through this famous genius. He did not know what her martial soul was, and he did not even know what her cultivation level was. However, he was sure that Qinshi had definitely entered the Exalt realm a long time ago. Moreover, it would seem like Qinshi's natural talent and will were top-rate existences. As expected of the blessed daughter of the heavens, she is indeed valiant. On the square, several elders looked at the beautiful figure and nodded in satisfaction. Time passed slowly as everyone waited anxiously. They had never thought that there would be someone who could compete with Murong Qingqing. Suddenly Xiaoli furrowed his brows. His body glowed with white light as he was teleported out. It's out. Looks like the outcome has been decided. Murong Qingqing wins. Murong Qingqing's supporters cheered. Not long after, Murong Qingqing was also teleported out. Her forehead was covered with a layer of sparkling and translucent sweat. It seemed that persevering until now was also very difficult for her. Alright, the second stage is over. Those who have persisted for more than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn have passed the test. Quite a few people sighed and hung their heads in dejection. It was because the second round had eliminated close to half of the people. And those who passed were nervously calculating their rankings. Shen Yaoyan's lips curled up in satisfaction because he discovered that he was ranked third. If he could reach the top 3 in the combat test, then his overall ranking would be in the top 3. At that time, after entering the academy, he would receive a reward for being in the top 3. The rewards of the Immortal Martial Academy were extremely generous. We will now announce the rankings, the red-robed elder said in a clear voice. The first place of the second stage is Lin Xian. What? Lin Xian? Everyone was stunned, especially those who were teleported out after Lin Xian. All of them had astonished expressions on their faces, as if they had heard wrongly. From their perspective, the first place would definitely be Murong Qingqing because she was the one who had persisted until the end. Even Murong Qingqing herself was astonished. Her beautiful eyes stared at Lin Xian, filled with curiosity and astonishment. Xiaoli, Lan Bai, and the other geniuses were also puzzled. This is impossible. Wasn't that brat teleported out very early on? Elder, did you guys make a mistake? Shen Yaotian cried out loudly. He didn't want Lin Xian to take advantage of a loophole and gain a huge advantage. There were also many cultivators who were doubtful. However, some other cultivators were silent because they knew why Lin Xian was judged to be first. Even the official disciples had strange expressions on their faces as they remained silent. Those cultivators who were clamoring about the unfairness seemed to have noticed the situation and quickly asked about it. After knowing the situation, they were all shocked. Gradually, the quarreling in the square became softer. Shen Yaotian was still shouting loudly, I don't understand. Elder, please enlighten me. He wouldn't let Lin Xian get first place. Stop quarreling. The red-robed elder pressed down with both hands, emitting a powerful aura. Instantly, the entire square quietened down. Look at Lin Xian's profound jade platform and you will understand. Hearing this, everyone looked over and exclaimed. Shen Yaotian's body also stiffened, stunned. The profound jade platform shattered? How is that possible? He naturally knew the function of the profound jade platform. It was absolutely impossible to break that thing. At least with their current strength and cultivation, it was impossible to do so. However, the profound jade platform that Lin Xian was sitting on had actually shattered into 2. This was too shocking. For a moment, Shen Yaotian's mind went blank. He was stunned on the spot. Murong Qingqing, Xiaoli, and the others also gasped. They had just experienced the illusion, so they naturally knew how dangerous it was. Lin Xian was actually able to break the profound jade platform. Didn't this mean that the illusion had no effect on him at all? If that was the case, then it was too terrifying. After our analysis, we have decided that the first place is Lin Xian, the red-robed elder said. Anyone who is interested can say it. Everyone was silent. No one spoke. What a joke. Lin Xian had even shattered the profound jade platform. Who would dare to object? Shen Yaotian had also recovered from his shock. However, his expression was extremely ugly. Not long ago he was still feeling smug, thinking that Lin Xian's willpower was not enough and that he would be eliminated early. Who knew that he would not be affected at all? Not only did he obtain a piece of land, but he even broke the profound jade platform. Thinking back to his previous performance, he realized that he was like a clown. It was extremely laughable. Shen Yaoyan's body trembled. He gritted his teeth and growled in a low voice, "After entering the academy, I will definitely teach you a lesson." Murong Qingchen, on the other hand, looked at Lin Xian with joy in her eyes. It wasn't a big deal to her that she didn't get first place. However, the incident this time made her discover something strange about Lin Xian. This made her even more determined to subdue Lin Xian. As if feeling Murong Qingchen's burning gaze, Lin Xian helplessly rubbed his nose. In the distance, Yan Qingyang's expression was gloomy as he clenched his fists. He had already seen Murong Qingchen as his woman for a long time. But now her performance had made him furious. Lin Xian, right? After entering the academy, I will properly teach you how to behave. Chapter 7:11. The red-robed old man quickly announced the rankings. Lin Xian, Murong Qingchen, Shaoli and Shen Yaotian. Lan Bai took up the top 5 spots. Over 500 people participated in the second round, but only over 200 successfully passed. The elimination rate was terrifying. I'll give you all an hour to rest and recuperate. After an hour we'll begin the third round. Those who passed the first round sat down cross-legged and began to recuperate. Although there was no battle in the second round, the experience in the illusionary realm caused their soul and mind to be greatly exhausted. That process was 10 times more tiring than a battle. Hence, everyone made use of the time to recuperate so that they could deal with the third round. These people were all geniuses and had all sorts of miraculous pills on them. Hence, an hour was more than enough for them to recuperate. Very quickly these people opened their eyes. Their eyes glowed with excitement as they looked forward to the third round. As long as they passed the third round, they would be able to enter the Immortal Martial Academy. Once they entered the Immortal Martial Academy, their future would be limitless. An hour has passed. Let's begin the third round. The red-robed old man waved his sleeves and a palm-sized exquisite pagoda flew out. It spun in the air and gradually enlarged. Finally, it landed on the square with a loud boom. The pagoda was divided into 7 levels. It was covered with golden spikes and shone with a brilliant light. This is the Tower of Trials. It is divided into 7 levels. Those who pass the first 3 levels are qualified. Now let the third round begin. As the red-robed old man's voice faded, the Tower of Trials emitted a dazzling light. On the first level, 4 doors opened at the same time. The cultivators who had successfully passed the second stage immediately dashed forward. Following which, over 200 people entered the Tower of Trials. The third round was a real battle. Of course, it wasn't a real battle between the examinees and real cultivators. Instead, it was a battle using illusionary treasures. Don't underestimate this kind of battle because it was more dangerous than a real battle. The opponents inside were formed according to the characteristics of the cultivators. The Tower of Trials had a total of 7 levels. Passing the first 3 levels was considered a success. Over 200 disciples entered the Tower of Trials. Following which, the doors on the first level closed. The Tower of Trials was like a small golden mountain, standing in the middle of the square. Soon, everyone realized that the trial tower was different because the first floor showed 234 dots of light. They represented the 234 people who had just entered. Lin Xian followed everyone into the Tower of Trials and appeared in an independent space. In the boundless scarlet plains, the sky was somewhat gloomy, and the wind was howling all around. If Lin Xian did not have a strong will, he would have thought that he had arrived at the Scarlet Plains. However, he knew that this was all an illusion. Then he was surprised again because he found that the wind shadow sword on his waist was gone, and so was the high-grade spiritual grade inner armor on his body. What replaced it was an ordinary black armor and a black iron longsword. It seemed like he couldn't use his own treasures and could only use the weapons and armors provided by this space. Lin Xian seemed to understand the rules here. He gave it a try and found that he could use his spiritual energy to form a red lotus armor. In other words, his strength was not affected. However, he quickly removed the red lotus armor. According to his speculation, if he died here, it only meant that he had failed the test. He would not really die. Therefore, Lin Xian would not miss such a wonderful opportunity to fight. He gave up on the red lotus armor and decided to use the most ordinary weapon to fight. A figure condensed on the scarlet plains in front of him. That person was also wearing black armor and holding a black iron sword. He was wearing a black mask and looked like a messenger of the netherworld. Lin Xian could tell from the other party's aura that he was a half-step venerable one. Looks like the first floor is easy. Lin Xian smirked. A half-step venerable one was nothing to him. He held an ordinary black iron sword and drew a black bolt of lightning in the air, instantly stabbing the other party's throat. Poof! The black figure fell and turned into spiritual energy, disappearing from this space. However, two more figures soon condensed. A black sword and a black mask. They were both half-step venerable ones. Lin Xian's expression did not change, and he continued to stab with his sword. The black iron sword moved in the air, instantly forming two sword shadows that stabbed towards the two black-clothed martial artists. Buzz! Bang! The two martial artists counterattacked, and one of them retreated like a black ghost. The other formed a seal with both hands, condensing an ancient shield in front of him that covered his entire body. Both of them were very fast and completed in an instant. However, Lin Xian's sword was even faster. Poof! Poof! The two figures fell and disappeared. Although the two of them counterattacked, the difference in strength between them was too great. They were not Lin Xian's match at all. However, Lin Xian was slightly surprised. That was because he realized that the two half-step venerable ones had begun to make the best adjustments to counter his attack. Lin Xian's sword was very sharp and fast. Therefore, one of them reacted quickly while the other strengthened his defense. They were changing according to the characteristics of Lin Xian's sword technique. Interesting. I wonder what's going to happen next? Lin Xian was looking forward to it and continued walking forward. Soon, his figure flashed and disappeared from the first level. In the outside world, countless people were staring at the trial tower in the center. They saw that all 234 light spots had arrived at the second level. However, some of those light spots were fast, some were slow, and some were fast. Did they pass the first level? Those people saw the changes in the light spots and discussed in low voices. They realized that after arriving at the second level, the changes in the light spots were even more obvious. A small portion of the light spots stopped at the second level and immediately rose to the third level. However, most of the light spots remained at the second level. Lin Xian was one of those people who had arrived at the third level. In the second level, there were 3 half-step venerables and 4 half-step venerables respectively. To Lin Xian, who had condensed his martial soul, the battle was quickly settled. The third level was also filled with black-clothed martial artists, but their cultivation had changed to the first level of the Venerable Realm. Venerable Realm was already an expert of a region. This was also the reason why the Immortal Martial Academy stipulated that as long as one passed the third level, one would be considered to have completed the trial. Those who defeated Venerables were qualified to enter the Immortal Martial Academy. However, it was not easy to kill a Venerable Realm expert. Most people would find it difficult to do so. Of course, Lin Xian was an exception. He had killed more than one Venerable Realm expert. Therefore, he passed the third level easily. In the outside world, everyone exclaimed because they realized that a few light spots had arrived at the fourth level very quickly. At this moment, most people were still struggling on the second level. They passed the third level so quickly? Everyone was shocked and in disbelief. Chapter 7:12. There were a total of 5 people who entered the fourth level first. They were the top 5 in the second round. These 5 people had condensed real martial souls and reached the Venerable Realm. In addition, they were geniuses and had mastered many secret martial arts, so it was easy for them to pass the third round. However, the fourth round was not so easy because there were 2 level 1 Venerables. When 2 Venerables joined forces, their attack power was absolutely terrifying. Although Lin Xian had killed Venerables before, he had never killed 2 Venerables at the same time. Even at the Divine Bird Palace, one person was sent out first. Taking a deep breath, Lin Xian's eyes lit up. He knew that this was the beginning of the real battle. In the other illusory realms, the geniuses also looked solemn as they stared at their opponents. At this time, many light spots had entered the third level, but soon they disappeared. Then, one figure after another came out of the trial and landed on the square. These people were pale and their breaths were chaotic. They were all martial artists who had failed on the third level. Not everyone had reached the Venerable Realm. If one did not have the corresponding strength to face a real Venerable, they could only be defeated. The third level was like a natural moat that blocked most of the martial artists. More and more martial artists were sent out of the square. The spectators gasped. At the same time, they were shocked by the red spots on the fourth level. How powerful were they to be able to pass through the third level in such a short time? In the fourth level, Lin Xian's figure was like a ghost. The black iron sword in his hand kept stabbing out like thunder, tearing the air apart. The two venerables opposite him were not weak. They quickly counterattacked. Terrifying light shrouded the surroundings. Every time they collided, the powerful energy would cause a shocking explosion. The black iron sword was like a swimming dragon. Lin Xian used the great strength sword soul to fight against the two venerables. The wind whistled and thunder roared. The sky darkened and the ground sank. Fortunately, they were in an illusory realm. Otherwise, the entire square would be destroyed in one blow. Peacock spreads its tail. One of the venerables shook his long spear. The sky was full of dazzling spear flowers. Silver light flickered like a peacock spreading its feathers in the air. A vast and terrifying aura instantly enveloped Lin Xian. Vermilion bird seal. Lin Xian struck out with his left hand and a crimson vermilion bird flew out. Its entire body was bathed in fiery light as it soared into the sky. The two forces intertwined and continuously destroyed each other. At this moment, the other supreme expert's attack arrived. Dense blood palm. Bloody light surged and spread 3,000 meters, covering the entire sky. A bright red palm condensed and appeared above Lin Xian's head. Then it crashed down. Starburst. He raised his right hand and stabbed his sword into the sky. The black sword gleam shone brightly as sword chi gathered. Pulling in the spiritual energy in the surroundings, it quickly condensed into a meteor. With a dazzling tail of light, it flew upwards. Boom. The black meteor collided with the blood-red palm. The palm closed its 5 fingers and grabbed it, then quickly smashed it down. Meteor sword chi exploded in mid-air. Terrifying sword waves swept out in all directions, turning into waves that could be seen by the naked eye. Kill? Lin Xian shouted angrily. He used the illusory demonic steps and rushed towards the two supreme experts. In his hand, the black iron sword was no longer ordinary. Streaks of blazing sword gleams soared into the sky, splitting the void and cutting the ground. They continuously attacked the two black-robed supreme experts. Boom, boom, boom. Every strike was fierce and violent to the extreme. Lin Xian was like a madman. The more he fought, the braver he became. In the end, he directly engaged in close combat. The iron sword was like a black angry dragon. It roared ferociously as the dragon sword soul was activated to the extreme. Poof. Finally, he found an opportunity to stab the spear supreme expert with the sword. The illusion was very realistic. Blood splattered everywhere as the sword slashed down. Woo woo. After succeeding with one strike, Lin Xian stepped up his attack. The black iron sword turned into a poisonous dragon and chased after the supreme expert. 13 styles of gale. Sword chi surged like a storm and quickly pierced towards the spear supreme expert. The void was pierced, and the terrifying sword gleam was unstoppable. Lin Xian's goal was simple. He wanted to kill one of them first before dealing with the other. The spear supreme expert was furious. A demonic peacock condensed on the tip of his spear. It was becoming more and more realistic. Poof. As the spear pierced out, the giant peacock attacked as well, making the power of the spear extremely terrifying. The 5-colored spear gleam created a demonic shadow in the air. It was like a surging divine light that rushed towards Lin Xian. Clang, clang, clang. Lin Xian swung his iron sword, forming a half-moon sword veil around his body. It was as if the moonlight scattered in front of him to protect him. The 5-colored spear gleam was blocked, but the other supreme expert behind him suddenly attacked. His palms were suffused with golden light. Lin Xian tried his best to dodge, but he was still swept in the shoulder. His body immediately smashed into the ground like a meteor. Boom. The ground trembled and a terrifying deep pit appeared. Whoosh. In the next moment, Lin Xian soared into the sky. His body was covered by a sword veil as he charged again. Although he was injured, he could not rest in this situation. He had to solve it as soon as possible. The dragon sword soul roared, and the entire sky trembled. At this moment, Lin Xian's combat power was raised to the extreme. His entire body was like a divine sword. He stood in the void, and his body was emitting a dazzling light that lit up the dark sky. Lin Xian took a step forward and arrived in front of the sanguine palm venerable in an instant. He swung his iron sword quickly. It was so fast that it was unbelievable. In an instant, it cut the sanguine palm venerable's shoulder, revealing his terrifying white bones. Vermilion bird seal. At the same time, he formed a seal with his left palm and hit the sanguine palm venerable's hand, sending him flying. The iron sword fell again like a black lightning bolt and cut the sanguine palm venerable apart. The first supreme expert was destroyed. Roar! The long spear venerable roared and charged again with his spear. Squall style. Lin Xian raised his iron sword in the air and made a killing move. A gale blew, and a red storm blew on the sanguine plain as if it was going to tear the world apart. The mountain peak was shattered and the trees were blown away. Everything was destroyed wherever the red storm passed. In an instant, the long spear venerable was covered and let out a miserable cry. The red storm was everywhere within 100 meters, and the entire ground caved in. However, before the power disappeared, Lin Xian's figure turned into a ray of light and disappeared. In the other illusory spaces, Murong Qingqing's jade-like palms shone like the hands of God. She smashed a venerable into pieces with one palm. Then she changed her palm into a finger and pointed it out. The thick finger light was like a dragon moving out, and it was extremely terrifying. Soon her figure also disappeared from the 4th level. As for the others, they were still fighting bitterly. In the outside world, everyone waited patiently. Suddenly they seemed to have noticed something and stood up excitedly. The 5th level, someone appeared on the 5th level. It's actually 2 people. Everyone was in an uproar. The difficulty of each level of the trial tower increased exponentially, and the 4th level was 10 times more difficult than the 3rd level. This was something that everyone knew. Chapter 7:13. The changes in the trial tower caused a commotion. 2 people have entered the 5th floor. One of them must be Murong Qingqing. Who is the other person? He's also so powerful. Everyone recognized Murong Qingqing's strength, but the other person was beyond their expectations. I think it might be Xin Yaotian. He's also a genius and comes from a king clan. His strength and trump cards are definitely extraordinary. Only he can stand shoulder to shoulder with Murong Qingqing. King clan. Everyone was shocked. Then they agreed. It was very likely. I wonder if they can pass the 5th floor? Someone said worriedly. It said that the 5th floor is for 2nd heaven venerables. I'm afraid it'll be very difficult to pass the 5th floor. Murong Qingqing will definitely pass, but the other person might not. Everyone discussed and expressed their own opinions. The official disciples in the square were even more shocked. The strength of the disciples participating in the assessment this time was beyond their expectations, especially the 2 on the 5th floor. They could be said to be terrifying. The elders of the academy were very satisfied. They stared at the trial tower with smiles. On the 5th floor, Lin Xian was in great danger. This was the first time he faced a 2nd heaven venerable head-on. Every attack from the other party made his blood boil and his body tremble. Was this the power of a 2nd heaven venerable? Lin Xian was shocked. He only managed to fight against a 2nd heaven venerable because he had an offensive saint technique like the great dragon sword soul. However, he might not be able to hold on for long. Fortunately, his opponent was not a real human, but a simulation of spiritual power. Therefore, Lin Xian was still confident that he could hold on for a period of time. Gale style. The iron sword slashed out, and a red storm swept through heaven and earth, enveloping the opponent. The black-clothed venerable's spiritual power jumped, forming an armor to resist the red storm. At the same time he punched out with his fist, which smashed towards Lin Xian like a mountain. Once a 2nd heaven venerable, whether it was speed, strength, or defense, they would all surpass a 1st heaven venerable. Therefore, under normal circumstances, a 1st heaven venerable would not be able to fight against a 2nd heaven venerable. Fortunately, Lin Xian had many secret techniques as well as a powerful martial skill sword soul, so he was able to deal with them for a while. Lin Xian's figure turned into a sword light as he tried his best to dodge and engage in a fierce battle with the black-clothed venerable. In another illusory realm, Murong Qingqing was also battling with a 2nd-rank martial saint. The energy in the sky surged violently as countless afterimages flew around. A terrifying aura spread out between heaven and earth. Murong Qingqing was like a fairy descending from the heavens. She stepped on a jade lotus platform, and lotus flowers danced around her. The sparkling and translucent petals spun rapidly, sometimes defending, sometimes attacking. Thunder rumbled every time they collided. Terrifying energy tore through the void and roared incessantly. Although Murong Qingqing was at a disadvantage, she did not show any signs of losing. While Lin Xian and Murong Qingqing were fighting against the 2nd-rank honorable realm, the other geniuses had also passed the test of the 4th floor and reached the 5th floor. However, when they reached the 6th floor, things did not go so smoothly for them. The might of a second heaven venerate had completely suppressed them, causing them to be severely injured right from the start. Shen Yaoyan's 108 starry halos shone brightly, making him look like a god of war. He punched out and countless meteorite-like fists struck the ground. However, this terrifying attack was shattered by the black-clothed venerable realm's palm. Shen Yaotian retreated, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were filled with shock. However, as a genius and a disciple from a sovereign family, he would not be defeated so easily. He waved his hands and a starry sky map appeared above him. It was extremely vast and shone with a mysterious light. Shen Yaotian held the starry sky map and charged toward the second-rank honorable realm like a god of war. However, this terrifying attack was still sent flying by his opponent. It was not that he was weak, but that his opponent was too strong. The starry sky map dimmed and disappeared. Shen Yaotian spat out blood and was sent flying. On the other side, Shaoli was like a saber demon. He held a black iron saber in his hand, and dazzling saber light swept out in all directions like waves, causing the entire void to boil. However, his opponent was too strong. The terrifying level suppression made him feel helpless. A terrifying fist filled the entire sky and instantly shattered the saber light in the sky. At the same time, it quickly blasted toward Shaoli. Boom! Shaoli fell to the ground as if he had been hit by a heavy blow. In the last illusion, the blue-white palm kept changing seals. Huge poisonous scorpions, spiders, pythons, and all kinds of poisonous creatures flew out from the void and charged forward quickly. At the same time, he condensed a poisonous cloud and floated over quickly. The surrounding air dimmed and purplish-gray poisonous gas filled the air. The surrounding plants and trees turned into withered grass and died. Even the ground turned yellow as if it had lost its vitality. Terrifying poisonous gas swept through the entire space. This poisonous gas was too powerful. Those below the honorable realm would definitely die upon contact. Even a first-rank honorable realm might not be able to resist it. However, his opponent was a second-rank honorable realm, and he was extremely powerful. Therefore, even though the blue-white palm had powerful poison, he was still defeated. Soon, the trial tower flickered, and 3 figures were teleported out of the square. In the outside world, when the crowd saw that 5 light spots had gathered on the 5th floor, they immediately exclaimed in excitement. However, not long after, they realized that 3 of the light spots were quickly dimming and disappearing. In the end, a white light flashed and 3 figures appeared in the square. Did he fail? The crowd was puzzled. Then they heaved a sigh of relief. There was a huge difference between each level of the honorable realm. Even prodigies would find it difficult to fight someone of a higher level. The trial tower restricts weapons. I'm afraid these prodigies' strength has been reduced. Many martial artists analyzed. They knew that these prodigies would be even stronger in reality. This was because they definitely had heaven-defying weapons in their hands that could definitely increase their combat strength by several times. No, that's Shen Yaotian. Why did he come out too? He was defeated too? Who's still inside? The crowd was shocked. They realized that the situation was different from what they had expected. Lan Bai Shaoli. Soon, the crowd recognized the 3 figures that had been teleported out. Then they gasped. The ones still on the 5th floor are Murong Qingqing and Lin Xian. Lin Xian. After Shen Yaotian understood the situation, his face was terrifyingly gloomy. He stared at the trial tower with a terrifying murderous intent in his eyes. He was shocked that Lin Xian had not come out yet. He must have just gone in. Just watch, he'll come out soon. Shen Yaotian comforted himself. The results of the 3rd round were based on how long one stayed in the trial tower. For example, on the 5th floor, if one stayed for 1 minute and the other party stayed for 2 minutes, the one who stayed for 2 minutes would naturally be ranked higher. Although Shen Yaotian had been teleported out early, he still had a glimmer of hope in his heart. Lin Xian had just entered the 5th floor. If that was the case, the situation was not too bad. According to his analysis, Lin Xian would definitely fail and be teleported out soon. The surrounding people were also discussing softly because they did not know if Lin Xian was one of the 2 light spots that had entered first or later. Chapter 7:14. On the 5th level of the trial tower. Lin Xian was like a sword god, surrounded by a huge sword qi. He stood in the air with a solemn expression. It was a rare experience to fight against a second-level supremacy without any scruples. Therefore, in order to prolong the battle, Lin Xian activated the Red Lotus armor. The bright red armor covered his entire body, and the red lotus on it swayed as if it was alive. With the red lotus armor, Lin Xian's defense increased by a lot, and it was not as difficult to deal with him as before. At the same time, he abandoned the black iron sword and held the sword of massacre and sword of nirvana with both hands. With the two auras surrounding him, Lin Xian was like the god of slaughter from hell as he stepped into the air. He did not hold back in this battle. Kill? With a furious roar, his body was like a bolt of lightning. He took a step forward and arrived in front of the black-clothed supremacy in an instant. The two swords in his hands quickly stabbed out. The sword of massacre and sword of nirvana were very powerful. In fact, they were not completely sword-intense but had their own concepts. Although the sword of massacre and sword of nirvana were not complete, they still had their own charm. The black sword chi surged with an aura of death and nirvana. It covered half of the sky, and wherever it passed, the vegetation would wither. Although the black-clothed supremacy was not a real life, he was still formed by spiritual power. This sword also affected him and his body became a little dim. However, as a second-level supremacy he was not so easily killed. His palm was like a knife. When it fell, the entire space seemed to be cut open, and the aura of nirvana was also ruthlessly cut off. At this moment, the bright red long sword had already slashed down, accompanied by the sea of blood that filled the sky. The crazy murderous aura swept in all directions, turning the entire sky scarlet. At this moment, there seemed to be only one sound left in the world, and that was to kill. Kill. Kill all, kill to your heart's content. The bright red long sword slashed down mercilessly from the sky. Clang. The black-clothed supremacy did not have any emotions. He was like a killing machine. He threw a punch which collided with the sword and made a shocking sound. The sea of blood in the sky surged and was sent flying. Lin Xian was hit and his chi and blood surged. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Meanwhile, the other party was similarly blasted backwards, causing the void to collapse. If someone else was here, they would definitely cry out in surprise. Lin Xian had actually pushed a second-rank venerable master away. This was unbelievable. However, Lin Xian's expression was extremely solemn because he discovered that the other party did not suffer any substantial damage. It seemed like he had no choice but to combine the two swords. In the next moment, Lin Xian clasped his hands together. The pitch-black long sword and the blood-red sword in his hands fused into a red-black demonic sword. Death and slaughter fused together to form a true demonic sword. At the same time, Lin Xian used a killer move, Falling Stars from Heaven. This move was extremely powerful. It was a martial skill that Lin Xian had practiced ever since he started cultivating. Once he used it, no one had ever been able to dodge it. Lin Xian's body turned into a stream of light. Holding the demon sword in his hand, he quickly stabbed forward. It was too fast. Lin Xian was so fast that he didn't even leave a trace in the sky. Lin Xian had already arrived in front of the black-robed venerable. Finally, it pierced through the man's armor and into his chest. Blood spurted out in all directions like a pillar. The black-robed venerable master roared and waved his palms. He slammed them into Lin Xian's chest and sent him flying. Boom. Lin Xian was hit head-on and was sent flying thousands of feet away. He crashed into a huge mountain. In an instant, the huge mountain crumbled and turned into countless rocks that drowned him. Boom. In the next moment, countless huge sword chi rushed out and sliced the huge mountain apart, creating a spacious area. Lin Xian crawled up from the ruins. He was panting and bleeding profusely. Countless cracks had appeared on the red lotus armor in front of his chest like a spider web. Especially on his chest area, there were 2 deep palm prints. This palm was too terrifying. Several of Lin Xian's ribs were broken and his internal organs were severely damaged. Fortunately, he had the red lotus armor. Otherwise, this palm would have blown him up. Damn it, what a troublesome fellow. Lin Xian spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were cold. On the other side, the black-robed venerable master was not in a good state either. The great dragon sword spirit was too powerful, allowing Lin Xian's attack power to break through his defense. Moreover, the red-black demon sword was even more strange. Coupled with a powerful martial skill like meteor fall from the heavens, it caused him to suffer heavy injuries. A red-black demonic sword was stabbed into his chest. It was emitting a murderous and deathly aura that constantly attacked his body. The black-robed venerable master's hair was disheveled. He roared and a powerful force burst out from his body, sending the demonic sword flying. The wound on his chest could not be healed immediately. It was the remnant aura of the great dragon sword soul. Unless there was a special method, it would be difficult to remove the aura of the great dragon sword soul in a short period of time. The black-robed venerable master used his method to madly absorb the surrounding spiritual qi to suppress his injuries. In the distance, Lin Xian also let out a long roar. He opened his mouth and sucked in the air. The spiritual qi in the air surged and formed a spiritual qi waterfall. It was vast and mighty and quickly entered Lin Xian's body. Then he used the longevity incantation and displayed his powerful recovery ability to quickly heal the injuries on his body. In the next moment, a dazzling light burst out from his eyes. His hands danced. Golden lightning danced in his left hand and condensed into a golden bow. The wind concept in his right hand quickly circulated and formed a green arrow. Ancient secret art, clear wind bow. In the next moment, the power of wind and thunder surged in the void. The terrifying attack was like a shocking rainbow, leaving behind afterimages of wind and thunder. Like afterimages of wind and thunder, it instantly pierced toward the black-robed venerable master. Boom. The terrifying power not only interrupted the black-robed venerable master's recovery, but it also worsened his injuries. In the next moment, Lin Xian's injuries were more than half healed. His expression was cold. Wearing a bright red armor, he slowly walked over like a fiend god. On the armor, the original red color mixed with the flowing blood. It was even more demonic. The red lotus seemed to be coming to life. His eyes were like lightning. The great dragon sword soul on Lin Xian's body surged, forming a terrifying force as if it was about to awaken. Boom, boom. With every step Lin Xian took, the ground would tremble. It was as if the one walking was not Lin Xian, but an ancient giant. An oppressive and heavy aura filled the entire space, making it difficult for people to breathe. Although the black-robed venerable master was not a real person, he could still feel the oppressive aura at this moment. He roared and released a terrifying aura to fight back. However, he was injured and the great dragon sword soul in his body was destroyed. In addition, Lin Xian was too strong now. For a moment he was at a disadvantage. If anyone knew, their jaws would drop. Lin Xian was actually suppressing a second-stage venerable master. Boom, boom. With every step Lin Xian took, the aura on his body became stronger. The great dragon sword soul also roared toward the sky. Then, a dragon-shaped sword image condensed in front of him. It was illusory at first, but as the great dragon sword soul roared, it became more and more real. Chapter 7:15. In the next moment he ignored his injuries and attacked in a frenzy. A terrifying aura gathered and formed a fist that smashed towards Lin Xian. Above the fist was a wolf head formed by spiritual energy. It roared ferociously and carried the aura of a martial soul. This attack was enough to easily kill a first-level venerate. However, Lin Xian did not dodge. He slowly held onto the dragon-shaped sword shadow in front of him. The energy in his body roared and surged into the dragon-shaped sword shadow. Lin Xian's heart raced and he felt as though he was being sucked dry. Feeling the energy leaving his body, Lin Xian did not hesitate and quickly swung the dragon-shaped sword shadow. Buzz! The sword qi was dazzling as though a real dragon was swimming in the void. The terrifying energy split the sky in half. Boom! The real dragon-shaped sword shadow and the wolf head fist collided. The terrifying energy instantly filled the entire space. Light flickered and a storm swept across, drowning everything. The light flickered and the space swayed. A gust of wind came from nowhere and blew away the dust and fog. Lin Xian knelt on one knee with his sword in hand. He was panting and his face was unusually pale. In front of him, the ground was split open and the terrifying crack extended as far as the eye could see. The aura of the black shirt honorable had disappeared. Lin Xian's mouth twitched. The attack just now was a sword shadow formed by the great dragon sword soul. It was extremely terrifying. However, the energy consumption was even more shocking. Lin Xian was almost sucked dry. He originally thought that the heavenly meteor was the most energy-consuming move. He did not expect it to be so lacking compared to the dragon-shaped sword shadow. He sat down with his legs crossed and wanted to recover. At this moment, a white light flashed and Lin Xian left the 5th level. At the same time, in another illusory space, Murong Qingqing was sweating profusely. Behind her, a human figure gradually disappeared. In front of her was the black shirt honorable who had collapsed. With a flash of white light, she left the 5th level as well. In the outside world, the crowd was in an uproar because they saw the 2 light spots on the 5th level disappear at almost the same time and reappear on the 6th level. They passed. Countless people went crazy. Even the official disciples were stunned and could not believe it. Yan Qingyang's face was gloomy and he was furious. The woman he liked had entered the 6th level with his love rival, which made him feel an indescribable anger. At the same time he also felt a trace of fear towards Lin Xian. One had to know that the 5th level was the 2nd level of the Venerable Realm, yet the other party had actually been able to break through. This was truly beyond his expectations. However, he wasn't afraid because he had also passed the 5th level back then. Not only that, his cultivation in the Immortal Martial Academy had caused him to grow even stronger. Therefore he was confident in dealing with Lin Xian. Xin Yaotian was stunned. Impossible, this was impossible. He roared in his heart, unable to accept this fact. This was a huge blow to him. He had entered the 5th level and hadn't persevered for long before coming out, yet the other party had actually passed. The gap between them was self-evident. For a moment, all kinds of disappointment and frustration welled up in his heart. Xin Yaotian felt his vision darken and he almost fainted from anger. Tower of Trials, 6th floor. The corner of Lin Xian's mouth twitched and he smiled helplessly. At the front, 2 second-rank sovereigns stood proudly with cold expressions. Right now, his spirit energy was depleted and he was also injured. It would be good if he could fight with half of his strength. Moreover, with 2 second-rank sovereigns joining forces, the difficulty was 10 times higher than the 5th level. Even if Lin Xian was at his peak, he wouldn't be able to pass, let alone now that he was heavily injured and exhausted. However, as a swordsman, it wasn't his style to give up without a fight. Therefore, even if he had to bleed to the last drop of blood in this battle, he would still give it his all. With a long sword in hand, Lin Xian walked up step by step. On the other side, Murong Qingqing was also under great threat. Behind her, an illusory figure flickered and emitted a terrifying aura, as if it had crossed time and space from the primordial era. However, the combination of 2 sovereigns was too powerful. Even if Murong Qingqing was extremely powerful, she was still no match for them. However, in the next moment, a strange inscription flashed between her brows, releasing a dazzling light and a heart-palpitating power. That power made the 2 sovereigns feel uneasy. However, after thinking for a moment, Murong Qingqing finally hid the mysterious inscription and didn't attack again. In the outside world, everyone waited anxiously, their eyes fixed on the 6th level of the Tower of Trials. In the next moment, the 2 light spots disappeared, followed by a flash of white light. 2 figures appeared in the square. They're out, they're finally out. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. They knew that the 2 of them had come out, which meant that they had failed the 6th challenge. However, this was already very terrifying. One had to know that the 6th level was guarded by 2 second-rank sovereigns. If the 2 of them really succeeded, that would be abnormal. Murong Qingqing's white clothes were whiter than snow. Although her aura was a little chaotic and weak, it couldn't hide her beautiful posture. As for Lin Xian, he immediately sat cross-legged in the square the moment he appeared. His hands formed a seal, as if he had entered some kind of cultivation state. The 2 figures attracted everyone's attention, especially Murong Qingqing. Most of the male cultivators were looking at her. Murong Qingqing was already used to the burning gazes of the surrounding cultivators. Ever since she was born, she had been surrounded by countless gazes like this. Until now, she had completely ignored them. Perhaps only someone like Lin Xian, who had a normal demeanor and was somewhat resistant, could arouse her interest. Murong Qingqing tilted her head slightly and looked at Lin Xian. Then, a trace of surprise appeared on her beautiful face. Is he about to break through? Sure enough, a powerful aura rose from Lin Xian's body. A huge spirit energy vortex appeared above his head. Countless amounts of spirit energy flowed into Lin Xian's body like an upside-down galaxy. In the next moment, Lin Xian opened his eyes. His gaze was like 2 sword rays, vast and mighty, piercing through the void. His body was filled with a powerful force. However, everyone's eyes were filled with doubt, which then turned into shock. This cultivation, how is it possible? The limit of the spirit-detecting realm. Heavens, how is this possible? Everyone was stunned. They didn't think that Lin Xian's cultivation was only at the limit of the spirit-detecting realm. Furthermore, this cultivation had just broken through. Many people's minds went blank. They couldn't believe the facts in front of them. Not only them, but everyone was also stunned. Previously, Lin Xian had used a special method to hide his cultivation. Coupled with the fluctuations of his martial soul, everyone thought that he was a young cultivator who had reached the venerable realm. But now, they realized that Lin Xian's cultivation was only at the peak of the spirit-detecting realm. This kind of cultivation was too ordinary, but he had passed the 5th level of the trial. He even lasted long enough on the 6th level to be teleported out with Murong Qingqing. How is this possible? Everyone felt like their heads were about to explode. Martial soul, he must have a martial soul. He's a fake venerable. Everyone discussed in shock. Cultivators who had condensed a martial soul but hadn't reached the venerable realm were called fake venerables. They had seen such venerables before, but no one was as powerful as Lin Xian. Chapter 7:16. Congratulations, you've broken through again. Murong Qingqing smiled at Lin Xian. This smile stunned everyone as if the whole world had become incomparably beautiful. It's alright, I was just lucky. Lin Xian shrugged his shoulders. Everyone was startled awake, their hearts were filled with jealousy and envy. They wished they could transform into Lin Xian and chat with Murong Qingqing. Yan Qingyang, Shen Yaotian and the rest were spitting fire from their eyes. Killing intent surged from their bodies as they wished they could tear Lin Xian apart. Especially Yan Qingyang, his eyes were abnormally cold as he roared in his heart, "Just a fake honored warrior, how dare he snatch my woman? Brat, after entering the academy, I'll teach you how to behave properly." With so many people and elders present, he couldn't do anything to Lin Xian. However, as long as Lin Xian entered the academy, he would have plenty of chances. Lin Xian and Murong Qingqing walked side by side to the edge of the crowd, waiting for the end of the 3rd round. 2 hours later, all the light spots in the Tower of Trials disappeared as everyone was transported out. At this point, the 3 rounds of tests had ended, and the entire entrance exam had come to an end. Those who passed the 3 rounds were in high spirits as they danced with joy because they could finally enter the Immortal Martial Academy. As for the stronger disciples who were ranked at the top, they started to calculate their rankings. What reward will you exchange for this time? Murong Qingqing looked at Lin Xian. Reward? What reward? What's there? Lin Xian didn't understand. You don't know? Murong Qingqing said, the top 10 will all have a reward and the top 3 will have even more generous rewards. They will probably be rewarded with martial arts. Martial arts, what grade? Lin Xian sighed in his heart. Yu Fei had the ability to gather information, but compared to Murong Qingqing he was still lacking. It seemed like he still had a long way to go before he could establish his own power. Half-Earth-ranked martial arts, but it was passed down from ancient times. Its power isn't any weaker than the current Earth-ranked martial arts. Half-Earth tier martial art. Lin Xian's eyes flashed. He didn't expect to receive such a big gift right after entering the academy. Now I'll announce the rankings of this assessment. Hearing the red-robed old man's words, the surrounding martial artists couldn't help but become excited. The martial artists who had passed the test also pricked up their ears. In fact, they had already estimated the rankings in private. After all, the rankings of the 3 stages were there. No matter how they ranked, the top 3 would still be the same people. The ranking this time is a bit special. There are 2 people in first place. 2 people. Hearing this, everyone trembled and listened carefully. Lin Xian and Murong Qingqing were first in the first 2 stages, and they both lasted until the end of the 3rd stage. Therefore their rankings are the same. They are both first. Whoosh! Everyone was in an uproar. Even though they had made some calculations in private before, they were still incomparably shocked when the academy elder announced it. This was a bit different from their predictions. They thought that Lin Xian would be able to obtain 2nd or 3rd place, but they didn't expect him to be first. They knew of Murong Qingqing's strength and excellence, but this was the first time Lin Xian appeared in front of them. The other party was a fake honorable martial artist. To be able to obtain first place this time was out of everyone's expectations. Shen Yaotian snorted coldly. His handsome face couldn't be any darker. The 3rd place is Xiao Li. The red-robed old man announced again. Since it was a double first place, there was no 2nd place. The 3rd place was obtained by Xiao Li, which was well-deserved. After the announcement of the top 3, many people sighed. Because the rewards for the top 3 were very generous. Not only were there spirit pills, but there were also some half-earth tier martial arts. That was the most tempting thing. Shen Yaotian didn't obtain the top 3 and was so angry that his body trembled. Firstly, it was because of the pain of losing the half-earth tier martial arts. Furthermore, he felt that he had lost face. One had to know that he came from a king clan and had always pursued Murong Qingqing. He thought that he was the only one who was worthy of her. But now Lin Xian had surpassed him. Moreover, Murong Qingqing's attitude towards Lin Xian was somewhat ambiguous. This undoubtedly provoked him deeply. Brat, wait until the freshman assembly, I'll let you know how powerful I am. Xin Yaotian gritted his teeth. Next, the red-robed old man announced the rankings of the next few people. Among them, Xin Yaotian was ranked 4th, and the 5th was the youth called Lan Bai who used poison. After the announcement of the rankings, the red-robed old man said again, I'll give you 1 day to deal with various matters. Gather here tomorrow morning. Yes. Everyone was excited and left. Older brother Xian, congratulations. Yu Fei ran over excitedly. He knew that Lin Xian was powerful, but he didn't expect him to obtain first place. Let's go, we'll talk when we get back. Lin Xian greeted Murong Qingqing and Shaoli before leaving with Yu Fei. Instead of returning to the storm courtyard, Lin Xian and Yu Fei went to their new residence in Sky Pool City. It was a small courtyard. Although it wasn't big, it was convenient and quiet. Moreover, buying a courtyard in a place like Sky Pool City was not cheap. After entering the courtyard, Lin Xian had the Dark Red Dragon set up a defensive array to ensure Yu Fei's safety. The Dark Red Dragon was an expert in setting up the array, so he quickly finished setting it up. Those below the Venerable Realm would not be able to break it. Even a first-level Venerable would need to expend some effort to break it. For Yu Fei it was enough. Following that, Lin Xian took out some medicinal pills and spirit wine that he had refined, as well as some spirit rank cultivation techniques and artifacts, and threw them to Yu Fei. Right now you should focus on your cultivation and increase your strength, Lin Xian said. Thank you, Brother Xian. Yu Fei looked at the things on the ground and was extremely excited. Brother Xian, what else do you need me to do? 4 missions. First, find out why the War God Palace is sealed. Second, find out the terrain and forces of Sky Pool City. Third, organize the information about the Azure Red Society. Their headquarters and branches need to be as detailed as possible. Fourth, find out if there are any weapon refining grandmasters in the lower blood realm. If there are, remember the information. These 4 missions were related to his future plans, so Lin Xian handed them to Yu Fei. Don't worry, Brother Xian. Yu Fei patted his chest and promised. Lin Xian nodded. I just entered the academy, so I might not come out for a while. So during this period of time, you can only rely on yourself. If there's any trouble, infuse your spirit energy into this jade pendant and I'll know. Lin Xian handed over another jade pendant. This jade pendant was also made by the Dark Red Dragon. There was an information transmission array inside. Once spirit energy was infused, the other party would know. Yu Fei took it and carefully put it away. Following that, the Dark Red Dragon created an array disk that allowed Yu Fei to control the array. Alright, Brother Xian, since you want to develop your power, what do you want to name it? Name? Lin Xian rubbed his chin. Let's call it Dragon Sword Pavilion. He rose up with the great Dragon Sword spirit, so he took this name. Dragon Sword Pavilion, a good name. Yu Fei clapped his hands. I believe that this name will definitely spread throughout the entire Blood Realm. The next day, Lin Xian left the courtyard and headed to the plaza of Sky Pool City. When he arrived, there were already quite a few people in the plaza. There were more than 1,000 people who participated in the exam yesterday, but only 138 people succeeded in the end. The elimination rate was extremely terrifying. Chapter 717. Over 100 young cultivators gathered at the square of Sky Pool City and waited quietly. Not long after, the space above the square distorted and an old man slowly appeared. It was the red-robed old man from before. Everyone follow me. Under his lead, everyone quickly set off for the Immortal Martial Academy. Soon they arrived at their destination. Looking ahead, everyone was extremely excited. Lin Xian also took a deep breath and looked ahead with a burning gaze. There were 2 gigantic bronze doors that were 100 feet tall. They were like 2 huge mountains that had stood tall for thousands of years. Lin Xian exclaimed. He had never seen such a majestic door. He could feel a surge of energy and a faint vicissitude aura from it. The red-robed old man struck out a series of seals and the bronze doors slowly opened. Everyone couldn't help but rush forward. Lin Xian was also excited as he walked towards the bronze doors. He had finally entered the sacred cultivation ground of the Sky Martial Continent. The Immortal Martial Academy was huge and one couldn't see the end of it. Looking around, there were palaces and pavilions scattered all over the place. Mountains and waterfalls were everywhere. Spiritual trees and spiritual herbs could be seen everywhere. Spiritual birds and spiritual beasts were running around and they weren't afraid of humans at all. The entire Immortal Martial Academy was like a paradise on earth. It was filled with spiritual energy. "Let's go. You are the latest batch of new students," said the red-robed old man. "There are new students? Aren't we the only ones?" Someone didn't understand. "You are only taking the test in Skypool City. The other regions of the Sky Martial continent also have tests. As long as you pass the tests, you can still enter the Immortal Martial Academy," explained the red-robed old man. After everyone understood the situation, they continued to move forward. "Look, what's that?" someone exclaimed. Then everyone looked up. Lin Xian also turned his head curiously. Between the mountains there was a huge black tortoise crawling there. On its back there was a black stone tablet that was 100 feet tall. On the stone tablet there were names that were engraved. "What's that?" Everyone looked at the majestic scene in shock. Lin Xian squinted his eyes. He saw 3 powerful ancient words on the right side of the black stone tablet. Mystic Sovereign Ranking. "That's right. This is the Mystic Sovereign Ranking." The red-robed old man explained. "This is a ranking created by the Academy for disciples below the 3rd heaven of the Exalt realm. As long as one enters the Martial Venerate realm, one will have the right to be listed on the list. However, the Mystic Venerate ranking only records the top 100 in the Academy. Top 100 under the 3rd heaven of the Venerable realm." Lin Xian was astonished. His current strength was equivalent to that of a 1st heaven Venerable tier peak stage cultivator. He wondered what rank he would be ranked at. "Little fellows, if you have the strength, then go all out to fight for the rankings." The red-robed old man smiled and said, "Because the rankings are related to your spiritual value points." Spiritual value points? Lin Xian was also puzzled. Spiritual value points are very important. We'll talk about the details later. The red-robed elder smiled mysteriously. At the side, Murong Qingqing lightly opened her red lips. "It is said that this spiritual value points can be exchanged for all cultivation resources. It can even be exchanged for Earth-rank martial arts and half-Earth-rank treasures. That's why, in the Immortal Martial Academy, other than one's life, spiritual value points are the most important." Exchange for Earth-rank martial arts. Lin Xian was astonished. He knew how precious and powerful Earth-rank martial arts were. He had exchanged his life for Earth-rank martial arts. He did not expect that he could exchange for them here. As expected of the Immortal Martial Academy, it was indeed domineering. "How strong are those fellows on the Mystic Venerable ranking?" Lin Xian asked again. "It is very difficult for ordinary 1st heaven venerables to get on the ranking, unless they are at the peak of the 1st heaven." Murong Qingqing's expression was solemn. "It is said that the top 10 are all at the peak of the 2nd heaven of the Venerable realm. Even the number 1 is at the 3rd heaven of the Venerable realm." 3rd heaven. Lin Xian was astonished. There are actually students who have reached the 3rd heaven. How powerful. It was very difficult to advance in the Venerable realm. For example, in the Sand region, an elder of a family was at the 1st heaven of the Venerable realm. It was estimated that a 2nd heaven of the Venerable realm could suppress a region. However, there was actually a 3rd heaven of the Venerable realm here. Moreover, he was a student. This meant that he was not too old and could be very young. Number 1. Lin Xian looked at the Mystic Venerable ranking. He saw that the number 1 name on the black stone tablet was shining with a golden light. Duguoyan. At that moment, the others also saw this name and their bodies trembled. It was as if there was a heavy force pressing down on their heads, preventing them from turning over. "It seems that I have to enter the Venerable realm as soon as possible." Lin Xian felt a sense of pressure. The crowd left and followed the red-robed elder. However, they all had a common goal in their hearts, which was the Mystic Venerable ranking. Under the red-robed elder's lead, they arrived in front of a majestic palace. The palace was grand and majestic like a giant city. Countless obscure lights flickered around it, and the power it unintentionally emitted caused Lin Xian and the rest to tremble. "What a terrifying formation!" Lin Xian exclaimed. His soul power was outstanding, so he could feel the terror within. This palace was probably very important. Otherwise, it would be impossible to set up such a powerful formation. Lin Xian guessed. The 4 Spirits Demon Extermination Formation. "I didn't expect it to be such a formation." The dark red dragon exclaimed. "You know it?" Lin Xian asked through voice transmission. "Of course. This formation is extremely terrifying. Even a king would not dare to barge in." The dark red dragon said. "Can trap a king." Lin Xian was shocked. He knew that the formation was powerful, but he did not expect it to be this powerful. The red-robed elder brought Lin Xian and the others to the front of the palace. There were already many people gathered there. Lin Xian looked around and realized that there were 3 teams led by 3 elders. Are these the other new students? Lin Xian guessed. Indeed, he guessed correctly. The new students who had arrived first turned around and looked at Lin Xian and the others with sharp gazes. It seemed that after learning about the mystic venerable ranking, these fellows' inner competitiveness and arrogance had been stimulated. Most of them looked at Murong Qingqing. They did not hide the passion in their eyes. However, when they saw Lin Xian beside her, they frowned. A few of them even snorted coldly with a hint of warning in their eyes. Lin Xian smiled bitterly. Can you pretend that you don't know me? Why? Murong Qingqing tilted her head and acted like a little girl. Are you afraid of them? This woman. Lin Xian rubbed his temples. Was she trying to provoke those people? Indeed, when they saw Murong Qingqing acting so intimately with Lin Xian, the eyes of the young men opposite them were spitting fire. The female students were so angry that they rolled their eyes. Their hearts were filled with jealousy. Among them, a young girl wearing fiery red leather armor stared at Murong Qingqing. Her eyes were filled with a fighting spirit that was not inferior to a man's. There was a layer of crimson glaze on her body. Chapter 7:18. That girl had long legs, a slim waist and a voluptuous figure. She was wearing a fiery red leather armor that accentuated her figure. Otherwise, the girl would still have a delicate and beautiful face. Her fiery red hair fluttered in the wind, giving her an indescribable fiery aura. Murong Qingqing was quiet and elegant, like a fairy. As for the girl, she was hot all over, brimming with a youthful aura. At this moment, other than looking at Murong Qingqing, all the male disciples were looking at the fiery red girl. Lin Xian looked carefully and discovered that not only was the girl's appearance and figure top-notch, but her aura was also surging. She had definitely reached the supremacy realm. Moreover, from the looks of it, she was also an expert in the supremacy realm. She was definitely the darling of heaven and earth. She's called Dongfang Phoenix. She's very strong and comes from the Dongfang clan. She was born with the ability to control fire. Dongfang clan? Yes, a hidden king clan. Murong Qingqing explained. Lin Xian took a deep breath. Another king clan. It seemed like these geniuses had extraordinary backgrounds. 4 such characters to come to the Immortal Martial Academy, it was enough to show how powerful and mysterious the Immortal Martial Academy was. From afar, the girl called Dongfang Phoenix felt Lin Xian's gaze and instantly snorted. Her beautiful eyes were filled with anger as she fiercely glared back at him. Lin Xian sweated. She was indeed hot-tempered. As if she felt Lin Xian's aura, Dongfang Phoenix revealed a trace of disdain and quickly shifted her gaze to Murong Qingqing. She had long heard of Murong Qingqing's reputation, but she was unconvinced. So now that they met, she felt a strong sense of enmity. Murong Qingqing smiled indifferently, then continued to whisper to Lin Xian. If he guessed correctly, Dongfang Phoenix was the first in that group. As for the other 2 groups, the one on the left was called Huang Lei, and the one on the right was called Zhou. Both of them were very strong and couldn't be underestimated. Lin Xian looked towards the direction of the voice and saw a robust young man standing in the group on the left. His strong muscles were like rocks, full of sharp edges. From afar it didn't seem like a person but a mountain, a huge mountain. It gave off a boundless sense of oppression. In the group on the right there was a young man in a black robe. He stood with his hands behind his back and his chin slightly raised. He looked at the sky as if he did not care about anyone. Lin Xian felt that the person looked very familiar, but he couldn't recall who it was. The young man suddenly turned his head and stared at Lin Xian with a trace of suspicion in his eyes. Then he seemed to have thought of something. It's you? You know me? Lin Xian asked. Of course, my younger sister lost to you back then. This time I will avenge her. The black-robed young man's voice was cold. He looked at Lin Xian with hostility. Sister? Lin Xian was puzzled. He couldn't recall, but her aura was very familiar. The peak of the spirit-detecting realm? Zhou was stunned for a moment before he sneered in disdain. It seems like you haven't been doing well these past few years. I really don't know how my sister lost to someone like you. Hearing this, the others looked at Lin Xian with disdain and mockery in their eyes. After all, the peak of cultivation was nothing here. Their bodies weren't even considered the lowest level. This guy is so weak. How did he get in? Could he have gotten in through some back door? The cultivators of the other 3 groups discussed. However, no one in Lin Xian's group dared to laugh because they had witnessed Lin Xian's strength with their own eyes. Lin Xian frowned slightly. Were these people idiots? They only looked at the surface cultivation? Humph, we'll know if I'm strong or not after a battle. Who wants to try? Lin Xian's gaze swept across with a sharp gaze. He wasn't someone who would back down. Moreover, he had no intention of backing down after coming here. Lin Xian's gaze carried a trace of the Sword Soul's aura. It was so sharp that it almost cut open the void. At this moment, the cultivators who were swept by his gaze felt their hearts tremble and a sense of terror. How is this possible? I'm actually afraid? What a terrifying gaze. Is this guy hiding his strength? Many people were terrified and didn't dare to provoke him. Zhou Su was also surprised. This gaze was not a threat to him. However, the aura of the Sword Soul in it made him wary. Hiding his strength. Interesting, but that's all. Zhou Su looked down. You'll know if it's interesting after you try. Lin Xian took a step forward and his aura suddenly changed. An unusually sharp aura gushed out, causing the surrounding air to surge and the sky to tremble. It was as if it was cut open by a peerless divine sword. Suddenly everyone was stunned. Everyone widened their eyes and looked at the scene in disbelief. Lin Xian's aura was too sharp and they couldn't bear it. Even Dongfang Phoenix was surprised. Her beautiful eyes turned and stared at Lin Xian. This aura was enough to threaten her. It seems that I've underestimated him. Feeling Lin Xian's aura, Zhou Su's face darkened. His gaze was cold as he looked ahead. No one dared to provoke him like this. Ding, ding, ding. Sparks collided in the air, causing ripples in the air. Each ripple contained a terrifying killing intent. I'm curious, what kind of strength do you have to be so arrogant? The two of them were like two divine swords facing each other. Countless tiny sword chi surged, forming a terrifying force field, making this place extremely dangerous. Everyone stop. The red-robed old man shouted. With a wave of his sleeve, the formless sword chi force field was broken. Fighting is forbidden in front of the True Spirit Hall. If you want to fight, the freshman competition is your battlefield. The freshman competition. Many people pricked up their ears and became excited. This was definitely a good opportunity to show off in the Immortal Martial Academy. Very well, I'll let you be arrogant for a while. Wait until the freshman competition, you'll know how stupid you are. Lin Xian retracted his aura. You're courting death. Zhou Su's face darkened. This was what he should have said. Strength isn't something you can say. When the time comes, I'll let you know what it means to be strong. Alright, now follow me into the True Spirit Hall. The red-robed old man said. After that, he and the other three elders opened the door of the True Spirit Hall. Everyone followed behind cautiously. This time we came to the True Spirit Hall to let you all broaden your horizons. At the same time, we'll make immortal martial spirit tablets for you all to become true members of the Immortal Martial Academy. After that, the four elders entered the hall and took out a crystal jade tablet that was half the size of a palm and threw it into the air. Everyone one tablet. Drip your blood essence and carve your soul imprint. Looking at the tablet that was like a rain of light, everyone started to move. Lin Xian grabbed one of the tablets and started to operate according to the rules. Drip his blood essence and carve his soul imprint. Soon, the immortal martial tablet emitted light and flew toward Lin Xian. Grabbing the tablet, Lin Xian felt as though he was one with it. Chapter 719. With the Immortal Martial Spirit Tablet, he would be an official disciple of the Immortal Martial Academy from now on. Lin Xian noticed that the others were studying the Spirit Tablet in their hands, so he curiously poured his spirit energy into it. Immediately, the Immortal Martial Spirit Tablet bloomed with light, forming a small screen of light in the air. Above the light screen there were all sorts of words and images. Lin Xian raised his head and looked. Surging Wave Sword Technique, Water Attribute Sword Technique, Sword Chi is like the waves of the sea rolling back the 9 heavens. Top Spirit Rank Cultivation Technique, Exchange for Spirit Value Points, 5,000 Spirit Value Points. Roaring Flame Saber High-Grade Spirit Rank Artifact, can increase fire attribute damage by 2 times, has a continuous burning effect. Exchange for Spirit Value Points, 7,000 Spirit Value Points. Purple Spirit Sand as heavy as 10,000 kilograms, can increase the effect of refining and increase the attack power of the artifact. Exchange for Spirit Value Points, 10,000 Spirit Value Points. It was densely packed with all sorts of martial arts, cultivation techniques, artifacts and so on. Lin Xian took a deep breath. So this was the use of spirit value points. It could be exchanged for all cultivation resources. He carefully looked at the light screen and found that there were many things on it, from low to high all the way down. The things on the top were of a lower level. Lin Xian scrolled down and his pupils suddenly constricted. Earth rank martial art, heavenly moon evil shadow art, earth rank cultivation technique, exchange for spirit value points 5 million. 5 million. Lin Xian was stunned. From the previous comparison he knew how terrifying 5 million spirit value points was. Probably not many people could exchange for it. However, putting an earth rank martial art here was a naked temptation. Because everyone knew how precious and terrifying an earth rank martial art was, those who had strength would go all out to gather spiritual value points. At this moment, the surrounding martial artists also noticed this situation and cried out in alarm. Although they did not have a single spirit value point, this did not stop their enthusiasm and fantasies. I wonder how many spirit value points a half earth rank martial art is? Lin Xian suddenly remembered that the reward for the top 3 was a half earth rank martial art. Following that, he quickly searched on the light screen. Found it, Demon Slayer art, half earth rank martial art, exchange for spirit value points 300,000. Although it was not as good as an earth rank martial art, it was still a terrifying number. Seeing everyone's excited expressions, the 4 elders smiled. This was the effect they wanted. Alright, I don't think I need to explain the use of spiritual value points. All of you should know, right? The red-robed elder laughed. Elder, how do we obtain spiritual value points? Everyone asked anxiously. There are many ways to obtain spiritual value points. For example, doing academy missions, killing demonic beasts, getting on the Mystic Sovereign leaderboard and so on. The Academy Handbook will be given to you when the time comes. It's very detailed. Now, I will give you the corresponding spiritual value points according to your rankings in the assessment. The assessment rankings also have spiritual value points? Everyone was excited. Of course, it's not just the ranking in the assessment. In the future, there will be a ranking in every competition. Furthermore, the higher the ranking, the higher the spiritual value. There are even special rewards for the top 3. For example, this time, the top 3 in the assessment will receive a half-earth tier martial art for free. Half-earth tier martial art. Everyone's eyes turned red as their breathing quickened. They had just learned from the screen that a half-earth rank martial art was worth 300,000 spiritual value points. If he were to do quests, he had no idea when he would be able to complete them. Damn it, I have to work hard to cultivate. No, I have to work hard to get a good ranking in the freshman assembly. Everyone was excited. The red-robed elder looked at everyone's excited faces and waved his sleeve, distributing the spiritual value points. Immediately, everyone looked at it excitedly. Lin Xian also looked down and saw that the number behind his spirit tablet began to change. In the end it became 3,000. 3,000 spiritual value points. This was the reward for the first place in the assessment. Damn, I can't buy anything. Lin Xian muttered. The cheapest item on the list was 5,000 spiritual value points. His 3,000 spiritual value points were not enough. The first place was 3,000 spiritual value points, and the other spiritual value points decreased in succession. If you want good things, then work hard to cultivate. The red-robed elder said, here, as long as you have enough spiritual value points, you can exchange for anything you want. Now the top 3 would receive a half-earth tier martial art. The red-robed elder waved his hand, and an even bigger and more resplendent light appeared above the main hall. The information on it was similar to the Jade token, but there were more and more comprehensive. There were a total of 4 teams, which meant that 12 people could receive a half-earth tier martial art. This Immortal Martial Academy was really generous. However, Lin Xian was relieved. It was just learning. The Immortal Martial Academy wouldn't lose anything, and it could even increase the sense of belonging to the academy. Lin Xian saw even more high-grade martial arts and some rare treasures on the light screen in the sky. If these things were placed in the outside world, each of them would cause a huge commotion, enough to make everyone go crazy. This was also why the other powers of the Blood Realm had wanted to invade the Immortal Martial Academy many times. Fortunately, the Immortal Martial Academy was strong enough to intimidate the strong enemies. Moreover, the Immortal Martial Academy had been around for thousands of years. Countless experts had walked out from here, and after they left, they were all overlords. Although they usually didn't have much, if the Immortal Martial Academy was in trouble, these people would definitely come back to help. Therefore, not only was the Immortal Martial Academy powerful, but they also had a group of powerful helpers. This was the reason why they could stand tall in the Blood Realm and prosper for so long. Suddenly, the dark red dragon in the demonic beast pouch became excited. Kid, dragon blood, dragon blood. Hearing the dark red dragon's transmission, Lin Xian quickly looked over. At the bottom of the light screen there were a few rows of words. 8-clawed tyrant dragon blood essence, heavenly ranking divine beast blood essence. It has the ability to seize the fortune of heaven and earth, and contains powerful energy. When used by martial artists, it can change one's physique at least king realm. If the amount of blood essence is sufficient, there is a certain chance of forming a half-dragon body. Hiss! After Lin Xian saw it, he sucked in a breath of cold air, as expected of a divine beast blood essence so powerful. A half-dragon body, Lin Xian guessed that it wouldn't lose to a king realm physique. Kid, get it, you must get it. The dark red dragon shouted, with it I can recover my dragon essence in advance. Was too excited. This 8-clawed tyrant dragon was also a dragon like itself. The blood essence would be extremely useful to it. Lin Xian exclaimed in surprise. After he looked at the price, the corner of his mouth twitched. Spiritual value points 8 million. Kid, if you can get it, I will do anything. The dark red dragon was anxious. You will do anything? Lin Xian became spirited. This ruffian dragon was extremely cunning. Normally, when it did things, it would be careless and not use its full strength. Now that it was willing to use its full strength, it was definitely a good thing. It seemed like this ruffian dragon was really anxious. Don't worry, I will definitely get it for you. Lin Xian said, however, 8 million spiritual value points is a sky-high price. It will probably take a long time. Okay, during this time, I will do my best to help you. After the two finished their discussion, the voice of the red-robed old man sounded again. You kids, quickly choose a half-earth rank martial art. Chapter 720. Lin Xian began to choose a martial arts cultivation technique. He had an earth rank martial art for movement, so he did not need it for the time being. He also had the red lotus armor for defense, so he focused on attacking. 4-season sword technique, this is it. Soon Lin Xian chose his target. 4-season sword technique was a half-earth rank martial art. It had 4 different attacking styles of spring, summer, autumn and winter. It was strange and varied, and its attacks were powerful. After Lin Xian, the others quickly made their choices as well. Murong Qingqing chose the falling flower sword palm, Dongfang Fenghuang chose the 10,000 flame seal, and Lin Xian did not look at the others carefully. After choosing, the red-robed elder gave everyone a jade slip with a half-earth rank martial art copied inside. Then he gave out a scroll of academy rules, which recorded in detail how to obtain spiritual value points. The next step was to arrange the accommodation. The red-robed elder and the other 4 elders brought Lin Xian and the others out of the True Spirit Hall and arrived at the square outside the hall. Then, several figures flew over from the horizon. Whoosh! 6 figures landed. There were men and women, and they all looked middle-aged. As for their exact age, it was unknown. The 6 of them landed on the square and began to distribute the disciples. More than 400 disciples were evenly distributed to the 6 middle-aged mentors. Among them, Lin Xian and Murong Qingqing were placed together. This made countless male students jealous. The mentor in charge of Lin Xian and the others was a middle-aged man with a square face. He said in a deep voice, "Follow me." Immediately, dozens of figures stood up and followed behind the square-faced middle-aged man, flying into the depths of the academy. After passing through the halls, Lin Xian and the others stopped at a place with beautiful scenery. This is your accommodation area. My name is Guizhang, you can call me Mentor Gua. The middle-aged man said. Lin Xian looked around. The surroundings were lush and there were mountains and rivers in the distance. In front of him was a courtyard. It was quiet and comfortable, very suitable for living. Moreover, Lin Xian's eyes widened. He realized that the spiritual energy here was very dense, much stronger than outside. That's right, there's a spirit gathering array here. Seeing that Lin Xian had discovered something, the middle-aged instructor smiled and said, "Of course, this is only the most ordinary spirit gathering array. If you want a higher-level spirit gathering array, you will need your spiritual value points." There's something even better? Lin Xian was surprised. This is already much better than the outside world. What's even better? Thinking of this, his heart burned with passion. The others were equally excited. Cultivating in a place like this would definitely yield twice the results with half the effort. However, Instructor Gua's next sentence extinguished everyone's enthusiasm. There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. You have to pay to live in a house. Starting from here, the deeper you go, the denser the spiritual chi is. Of course, the more expensive it is. 500 spiritual value points for a month outside, 1,000 spiritual value points for a month in the middle, and 2,000 spiritual value points for a month inside. So expensive. Everyone cried out in alarm. Many people's faces darkened because they had just arrived at the academy. The spiritual value points in their hands were the rewards for ranking in the examination. Those students who were ranked at the bottom did not even have 500 spiritual value points in their hands. They probably could not even afford to live in the outermost courtyard. Seeing the embarrassed looks of the newcomers, Instructor Guo smiled. Since you guys have just arrived, you can owe the first month's rent and pay it next month. Alright, you can choose now. Everyone's expression was solemn as if they were facing a great enemy. The courtyard inside was good, but 2,000 spiritual value points for a month was really a sky-high price. Although they could pay it later, it did not mean that they could not pay it at all. Everyone thought about it and decided to live in the outermost courtyard first. They would wait until it was stable before considering the house inside. Where do you live? Murong Qingqing asked. Inside. Lin Xian replied. He had 3,000 spiritual value points in his hands, which was enough for the first month. Moreover, he believed that with his strength he should be able to earn enough spiritual value points. Moreover, the spiritual chi here was indeed not bad. It could speed up his cultivation. Only when his cultivation reached the venerable realm would Lin Xian have confidence in his heart. After all, there were too many monsters in the Immortal Martial Academy. I'll go too. Seeing that Lin Xian had chosen the inside, Murong Qingqing followed. Sigh, I'm so envious to have a beauty accompanying me. Many people were jealous, but they knew that Lin Xian really had strength. They could not be envious. If they wanted to achieve what they wanted, they could only work hard to cultivate and increase their strength. Shaoli chose the courtyard in the middle. Xin Yaotian stared at the backs of Lin Xian and Murong Qingqing, his eyes burning with anger. However, when he saw the spiritual value points in his hand, his face immediately darkened. In the end, he could only choose the courtyard in the middle. Walking on the small path paved with gravel, Lin Xian felt that the spiritual chi was getting denser and denser, and his mood was great. The 2,000 spiritual value points were worth it. How good would it be if I could master this kind of spirit-gathering array? Lin Xian envied. When the time comes, when I establish the Dragon Sword Pavilion, I will get 100 spirit-gathering arrays. Bah! The dark red divine dragon looked down on him and said, "What do you think this is? Cabbage? This kind of exquisite spirit array is not something that an ordinary person can set up. Don't I have you?" Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. Aren't you known as a formation master? This spirit-gathering array shouldn't be difficult for you, right? If it was at its peak, it would be a piece of cake. But now it's really difficult. The dark red divine dragon drooped his head. It's fine, there's no rush. You should first understand the spirit-gathering array here. I'll think of a way to increase your strength. Lin Xian frowned. What are you thinking about? Seeing that Lin Xian did not speak, but his expression kept changing, Murong Qingqing asked curiously. "Oh, I'm just amazed by this powerful and magical spirit-gathering array." You mean this? As far as I know, this is only an ordinary spirit-gathering array. There are intermediate and advanced spirit-gathering arrays above this. Only those are considered good. There's more. Lin Xian sucked in a breath of cold air. This was truly an eye-opener. Alright, don't be so serious. If you join the Murong family, all of this will be nothing to you. Murong Qingqing tempted, will you consider it? This girl is at it again. Lin Xian was helpless. Am I that good? Murong Qingqing tilted her head and looked at him. Although you're not the strongest, you're the most special martial artist I've ever seen. I have a feeling that your future achievements will be limitless. So, I have to make the most of it now. Are you sure? Lin Xian was surprised. Don't underestimate a woman's sixth sense. Murong Qingqing was very confident, and all the things you've done have shown that you're indeed very special. How about this? Why don't we make a bet? Lin Xian saw that he could not escape, so he came up with an idea. What? Let's see who gets first place on the Mystic Sovereign leaderboard. Lin Xian's eyes shone brightly. If it's you, then I'll join you unconditionally. If I get first place, then don't mention this again. If anyone else was present, they would definitely go crazy. Lin Xian was a new student who had not even reached the martial venerable realm, but he was actually thinking about getting first place on the Mystic Sovereign leaderboard. Moreover, he was betting on getting first place. This was a madman. It was evening. The setting sun shone through the layers of leaves, forming spots of light that scattered on Lin Xian's face, as if he was covered in a layer of radiance. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.